and he's going to play a vibraphone solo called Soaring. So let's give it up for Lex Henderson, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Lex Henderson, senior at Battle High School. One more round of applause. Thank you so much for providing that music for us and for showcasing one of the many ways in which the Fine Arts Department at Columbia Public Schools really develops and showcases the many talents of our students. Thank you. I'm just waiting for the gong to hit 6:30. Okay, it is 6:30. We will call the meeting to order. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda has been adopted. I will read our equity statement tonight. Columbia Public Schools, through action and in partnership with families and community, will uphold the values, policies, and practices that promote cultural competence. We will accept, embrace, and empower students and staff in their individual identities to establish and sustain human dignity, justice, and equitable treatment, and inclusiveness in the classroom and workplace. Which leads us perfectly into special recognition. And we have Dr. Helen Porter and Mr. Devin Moore helping us with Staff of the Month.
I will speak very loudly. Good evening. We are thrilled to be presented with the chance to once again honor our Staff of the Month for January and February. You might remember in January, we encountered a snow day, and so we had to postpone. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Good thinking. In January, we had a snow day, and so we had to postpone our Staff of the Month. So we appreciate the opportunity to bring them together here in February. The individuals gathered here this evening epitomize excellence in every aspect of their roles as educators. They not only excel in delivering quality instruction, but also cultivate robust connections with their students, provide unwavering support to their schools, colleagues, and administration, and contribute in countless ways to the overall success of our educational community. It is with immense pride and pleasure that we introduce them to you tonight. In January, we have Betsy McCracken. She is from Early Childhood Special Education. Next, Tiffany Holman from Fairview Elementary. Jennifer Woldrow, Paxton Keeley Elementary. Jenny Howard, Jefferson Middle School. Our February awardees are Tony White from Alpha Hart Elementary. Amberly Slavin from Mill Creek Elementary. Kristen Neese from West Boulevard Elementary. Jennifer Soroy, John Warner Middle School. And Natalie Hedrick from Hickman High School. I want to thank our administrators in the back for coming out and sharing their support with our teachers tonight. Administrators, can you wave? Thank you.
We would also like to recognize a substitute of the month, Dr. Holtz.
Good evening. The administration is pleased to recognize 2 EduStaff substitutes as substitutes of the month. Substitutes are nominated by CPS employees. If I could please have Jana and Marcia please come up. All right. Jana Tolson, a retired teacher from CPS, joined the EduStaff team in the fall of 2021. She has done an outstanding work this year in a long-term teaching position at Grant Elementary and has served on a variety of schools days since then. She has received a variety of nominations this school year, and most recently from Lena Sheets, school counselor at Grant, for being an exceptional professional who is invested in her students and treated all other staff like family. She went on to say that Mrs. Tolson deserves all the recognition she can get because coming into our classroom isn't a job to her. It's a passion, and it shows. It shows in her kindness and communication with staff, students, and parents. We can't wait to see her in our building again. Next is Marcia Sprigg. Marcia, a retired teacher from CPS, joined the EduStaff team in Columbia in the fall of 2021. She has made a great impact at CPS this school year, filling a long-term teacher position at Beulah Ralph Elementary and 2 long-term teaching positions at Russell Boulevard Elementary. She was nominated by Mary Helmuth, a teacher at Russell Boulevard, for going above and beyond to help the teachers at Russell. She reflected on when Marcia had previously subbed for a few days, noting that it was so nice not to worry about anything, and that she took care of everything with expertise and sensitivity.
And then I believe we have one more very special award.
Good evening again. I'd like to introduce Ms. Brianna Kavanaugh, who is our coordinator for Fine Arts, who will introduce our award winner.
Good evening. I am thrilled to be here tonight to recognize Hannah Aubrey for receiving the 2024 Missouri Music Educator Association David B. Goodwin Outstanding Young Music Educator Award. This award is to recognize and acknowledge the outstanding teaching of a music educator who has shown extraordinary promise, diligence, and success. Recipients must have completed at least 3, but no more than 7 years of teaching. Nominees for this prestigious award are solicited from across the state and voted on by the MMEA area vice presidents. I was truly delighted to hear about the recognition and achievement that Hannah has received. And of course, she was not the one to tell me that she had received this award. A colleague pointed it out because she is so humble. This award not only highlights her exceptional teaching skills, but also underscores her promise, diligence, and success as an educator. The fact that nominees were selected from across the state and voted on speaks to the competitive and esteemed nature of the award. Being selected is a testament to Hannah's dedication and contributions to music education. Hannah was presented with this award at the Missouri Music Educators Association Conference in January. Her recognition as a model of teaching, learning, and professionalism is not only an individual accomplishment, but also an inspiration for other new teachers. It sets a standard for aspiring educators to emulate, showcasing the positive impact that a dedicated and passionate educator can have on their students and the broader community. We are incredibly lucky to have Hannah as part of our CPS Fine Arts staff. Congratulations to Hannah on this well-deserved honor.
We are actually going to recognize one more very important person, and that is our board secretary, Ms. Noelle McDonald, for completing the Missouri School Boards Association initial level of the Board Secretary Academy. MSBA created the academy, and Noelle is one of the first to do the training. To get this award, she has had to serve as board secretary for at least 1 year, complete at least 10 eligible training hours, join the MSBA's board secretary listserv, and observe board meetings from at least 3 other school districts, in person or virtually, and submit the required documentation to MSBA. And in the words of the MSBA executive director that sent this, she said, "It is obvious that Noelle takes her job seriously and is committed to growing as an employee." And I can attest, as a person who has worked very closely with Noelle for the past several months, that she does take her job very seriously, and we absolutely could not do the work of the board without you, and we appreciate you greatly. Congratulations. Now you come around. All right, we will turn our attention to public comment. We would like to invite the public to give comment at this time. We will receive comments from individuals who registered in advance. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes, which will count down on the timer on the wall. Comments related to disciplinary actions or other matters which could be the subject of a grievance process, or comments that are derogatory of any person, business, or organization will be ruled out of order. Please refrain from any use of obscene language or disruptive and/or threatening behavior. Patrons who did not register in advance may always make a written public comment by completing a form on the back table. Please place the completed form in the blue box. Please come forward after I have read your name. We prioritize comments up to action items, and so our first speaker will be Glenn Cobbins Sr. on action item 11B, the superintendent contract. Mr. Cobbins.
Give God honor first. I got to do that. Thank you for listening to me. I come to talk on behalf of Dr. Yearwood. And I got to thinking, I always like to be funny when I speak in front of the public. You know, that way I can, break the ice a little bit, right? Because people looking at me from back there and you guys looking for me. I feel like I'm on the spot. Y'all supposed to laugh. Okay, but listen, on a serious note, I got to thinking this, when I got off work today, I got to thinking about what can I say that's real, right? And I think about his responsibilities, trying to satisfy you all, trying to satisfy the parents, the children, the staff, the administration. That's a heck of a job to do. So to balance that out and still have a head full of hair is impossible, as you can see. But I really appreciate what he's doing or is trying to do for the scholars. I appreciate his effort. Every time when I talk to him, it's like going through a fast food restaurant. You order some fries and keep going. I would never have a real sit down with him, maybe once or twice a year. But I really appreciate what he's doing. I appreciate some of the camaraderie that he's made in our neighborhoods, in our schools, and some of the scholars. And using the word scholar every day means a lot to me. You know what I'm saying? Because it's never been used. I've dealt with all of the superintendents since I've been home. I mean, the Chris Belchers, the Steeplemans, and Brown Cox. I dealt with all of them. And none of them use the word scholar. Not only just for the black and brown skin, as you all call it, but all the scholars. Pale skin, yeah, don't make any difference. They're children. And I think he has that in his heart to try to help out. So the reason I'm here tonight is because I want everybody to know that from my mouth. Because my body of work that I've done for the last 25 years, I don't need to be pat on the back or, you know, even though I got the Sherman Brown Award, his daughter back there, but, you know, I wasn't expecting it. I just do the work because it's in my heart. You know, and I think he does the same thing, even though he gets paid for it. I mean, I think his heart is in the right place, and I'm here to support that. And thank you all for listening, and I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you, Dr. Yearwood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cobbins. I'm going to ask the audience, just in the spirit of fairness, not to react to any public comment. The board is not allowed to react to public comment, and so that extends to both, you know, we don't allow hissing and booing either. So please also, we would like to have no applause, and that's not a comment on anyone's comment. It's just in order to maintain fairness and order. Thank you. Next, we'll hear from David Prince, speaking to item 10A, the Student Transportation Services Contract.
First of all, good evening, everyone. I represent Student Transportation of America. I'm the Vice President of Operations. And I've been the Vice President of Operations for the Columbia area since we assumed this contract approximately 9 years ago. We as a company, as well as a district, gone through a lot of changes over the last 10 years. We all battled COVID together. One of the great things I can say right now is that we don't see too many people in here with masks on, so we've kind of graduated from that. But in that time, we as a company came to the district and asked for increases in rates so we can increase wages for our drivers. And we saw the benefits of that. This school year, based on the transportation director, this has been one of the best starts of school year in quite some time. And a lot of districts can't say that. So we're very happy to be able to say that we've kind of grown together. So it's kind of hard for me to come in front of you now to know that our relationship will be ending. Usually relationships end on various reasons. It could be money. It could be just going in different directions. But since we've been here for 9 years, and we'll be going another year, a 10th year, we thought it was imperative that when we bid on the contract again, that we gave you our best effort. And based off of our efforts, we saw where our numbers were somewhat close to $1 million less than the bidder that you chose. With many school districts struggling for finances, we're in a position where we're losing a contract because our bid is the lowest bid and we provided the best service. It's hard for me to accept, which it may be hard for our employees to accept. There's no presentation that I could give that would give you, that would make me feel that you would award me something based off the level of service that you're getting now. But I come in front of you today to say, we as a company, we're going to stay dedicated to what we promised when we bid this contract 9 years ago. We have one more year, and we can promise you this will be our best year. We don't want anybody walking away with regrets. Thank you very much for your time.
Next, we will hear from Danielle Johnson, giving general public comment.
I'm short. Okay. In 2020, I was tasked with what some considered the impossible: to bring together 3 rival speech and debate programs so we could streamline resources and unite in hopes of making each program stronger. I spent that year telling my team that from here on out, we were going to go for the gold, to be each other's biggest cheerleaders and support systems. Students were hesitant. Prior to my arrival, there was a ban on Hickman and Rockbridge students talking to each other at tournaments because that would be fraternizing with the enemy. And battle speech and debate, well, that was an afterthought. One student told me we might share a bus, but he'd never share a hotel room with anyone from one of those other 2 schools. This same student, surrounded by the 18 other students we qualified to nationals just 2 years after joining forces, toasted our 3 teams and said, though he was our biggest doubter, we did it. We somehow came together to cheer each other on despite a win for one often meaning a loss for another. Seniors at one school spend weekends training opposing teams for new forms of debate. When any CPS team wins, the cheers and genuine joy for each other causes eruptions in auditoriums. Since merging, we have tripled in size, and each team has achieved multiple accomplishments for the first time ever. We truly are better together than we are apart. So why am I here telling you this tonight? Because I think it represents the attitude every student, parent, teacher, administrator, and community member should take towards our school district. We are better together than we are apart. We are stronger, we are more empathetic, and we have more potential for success when we look at results listed by school, and the first word out of our mouth is not, oh good, we beat so-and-so. What if instead we focus on our communal power to do good for all of CPS? What might that look like? If you're a board member, you might reconsider the dangerous trickle-down effect of having a competitive motto of trying to be the best in the state. If you're a teacher, it might mean questioning whenever you hear someone in your PLC claim, well, your school just holds kids to higher standards. If you're a community member, it might mean problematizing any school bashing you hear when you're getting your hair cut or you're buying groceries. As a parent, it might mean not modeling or tolerating any blatant disrespect or stereotypes about any of our schools, especially the ones you and your children have never or rarely stepped foot in. As admins, it means directing conversations around data so that they don't become moments of belittling anyone or any school. My teacher husband, our 3 daughters, and I have collectively been a part of 12 CPS schools. Each one is full of wonderful children who deserve an exceptional education. As we become more data dependent, I urge us to make decisions, especially those about resources and attendance lines, with this unattributed quote at the forefront of our minds. Every one of us must care about everyone else's children. Every children, the well-being of every child, every grandchild is intrinsically linked to the welfare of all people's children. After all, when one of our children needs life-saving surgery, someone else's child will perform it. If one of our children is in danger by violence, it'll be someone else's child that did it. The good for our own children is only possible.
We will now hear from Kelsey Mesher, giving a general public comment.
Hello, my name is Noah Sill. I'm a junior and a second-year wrestler at Battle High School. Both Rockbridge and Hickman both have wrestling rooms. We on the Battle High
I'm sorry,
School...
what'd you say your name was?
Noah Sill.
Is Kelsey Mesher here? Okay, so instead of Sammy Simmons. Okay. Will you start the timer over, Noel? Sorry. We need to keep track
Hello.
of everything. Okay,
My name
thank
is
you.
Noah Sill. I'm a junior and a second-year wrestler at Battle High School. Rockbridge and Hickman both have wrestling rooms. We on the Battle High School wrestling team have to share a gym with multiple sports. Practices get cut short due to basketball games. Practices are tight due to the need of only having one half of a gym to wrestle on. Students can be put into semi-dangerous situations when we are running into each other due to a lack of space. I implore you to look at the facts on the matter. Yes, we may be farther out than the other schools, but what does that mean that we get less than they do? The Columbia Public Schools values stated by the Columbia Public Schools webpage are as follows. Integrity, trust, collaboration, transparency, empathy, and grace. So I'm going to be transparent with all of you here before me tonight. This is not fair. We are just as much a part of this district as the other schools. And like the other schools in our district, we have at least one wrestler going to the state tournament. Battle hosts one of the largest wrestling tournaments in the state. I want you to think about that for a minute, please. The school with not a proper wrestling facility holds one of the largest wrestling tournaments in the state of Missouri. So why hasn't it been done yet? Why have we not been on an equal level as our peers? And why do we not have the equal facilities as our peers? Battle High School wrestling team shows you guys' and your values. Trust. We trust each other with our safety and our well-being. Empathy. If one of us takes a loss, we all take a loss. Collaboration. We work together with our coaches and our teachers to become better student athletes on the mat and in the classroom. And transparency. If one of us is slacking, we all get on them to make them better. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so this is Kelsey Mesher. Go ahead.
Hello, CPS board members, Dr. Yearwood, and the executive leadership team. My name is Kelsey Mesker. I'm a physics, chemistry, and avid teacher at Battle High School. In addition to teaching, I also serve on Battle's executive council. I serve as a representative on the superintendent's advisory council. I'm also a district equity trainer. And last but in no way least, I'm the assistant head coach at Battle for our wrestling program. If my list of involvements doesn't indicate my passion for Battle alone, let me say it. I love Battle High School. I love working there. I love my students. I love my coworkers. I love my job. But my job is impossible to do without adequate facilities. As a CPS legacy who graduated from Hickman, I'm keenly aware of the way this district treats and funds its most needy schools and students. The list of ways in which this district fails our culturally diverse students could go on forever, so I'll focus on an obvious and fixable issue: Battle's athletic facilities. When BHS was built with 2 gyms, CPS was quick to alleviate the inequity at Hickman and Rockbridge. They got a giant athletic expansion, including a second gym, but also included larger weight rooms, fancy locker rooms, and a wrestling room. Battle still has 2 gyms, but that's it. We have a very small weight room that doesn't fit our whole football team. We have no fancy game day locker rooms, and we have no wrestling room. After coaching this program for 6 years, the detrimental effects of not having our own space have grown and grown, which has directly affected our ability to recruit new wrestlers as well as compete with local, conference, and state opponents. We are the only school in Central Missouri without a wrestling room, and I believe one of the only, if not the only, Class 4 program in the state of Missouri with no room. Scheduling practice time is a stressful and congested experience as we schedule 7 different teams for 2 gym spaces. We bleed 15 to 20 minutes every practice rolling out mats and putting them back away because we have to build our own room every day. We continuously lose wrestlers throughout the season as our week for morning practices comes up and kids do not have rides or the energy to practice at 6 a.m. We regularly have to end practice early due to basketball games scheduled for our gym. In summary, running the program without a dedicated space requires 5 times the amount of effort that my Hickman and Rockbridge counterparts experience. These struggles hinder all of our winter sports at Battle High School from competing at the same level as our crosstown rivals. I want to leave the board with this: Battle deserves the same access to facilities as Hickman and Rockbridge. This is 10 years overdue. Please don't let this obvious and destructive inequality go unaddressed, and we ask that you find it in our healthy district budget to right a wrong and give Battle the adequate athletic facilities we deserve. Mariel and Elliott Battle did not fight for equal access so long in this district to come up as short as we are for our students at Battle. Thank you for your time and consideration.
We'll hear from Kate Canterbury next, giving general public comment.
Hi, my name is Kate Canterbury. It's been a while since I've come and talked here, and I was really called to come up and talk about something that's not affecting me, my life, or my kids' life, but does affect something that's very important to me. As the daughter of a public school teacher who taught middle school for 20 plus years, I've always thought she was a little wild to do that, but she swore she'd love it. I know how much teachers work. As parents to kids who have been touched by so many teachers' lives in CPS, I know how hard teachers work. And what I do know is that they are woefully underpaid in our district. The national living wage is around $46,000, and the average wage of our teachers is around $40,000. I know that we live in a very unique community here in Columbia with such a large university and a smaller town. What that does to our town is it makes the average rent around $1,400 and almost impossible to buy a home. I have a friend who has a very good job who has been trying to buy a home for 2 years and cannot find one. And what is happening is that our teachers are making less than they would in Kansas City or St. Louis, but the cost of living here for them is actually more than it would be in either of those cities. I think we know that to have a strong community, we have to have people who want to live here to make this their home. The city knows that. That's why they're paying retention bonuses at the same time that our city is working so hard to keep those workers here. I do not see CPS doing the same for their teachers. The people that teach our students are the most important people in the district. It's not that the people doing the work and admin are not important. You know, I served every PTA luncheon. I definitely make sure those teachers see me out there serving at those luncheons. But the staff that I talk to, they're doing the real work too. But right there in the classroom every day that's teaching our children, those teachers are not making enough money. And we need to make that a priority, or we are going to lose experienced teachers to larger cities, to other districts, to the numerous private schools that are expanding and building here in Columbia. And we're not only going to lose them, we're going to lose all the knowledge that they bring. We're not going to have anyone to guide our younger teachers. We're not going to have anyone to guide all those amazing students coming out of Mizzou in their education program. So I know it's a lot. Budgets are hard. There's a lot of money that we have to spend on facilities. I know all this, but I'm begging you, please, when it comes to our teachers, let's make that the priority of where we spend our money. Thank you.
We will next hear from Tina McNeil, giving general public comment.
Good evening. My name is Tina McNeil, and I'm a parent of 4, 2 of whom attend New Haven Elementary, and I'm here to advocate for this school. I thank you for hearing our recent pleas and requests from parents, teachers, and our principal for help in supporting kindergarten. The problem is the lack of support seems to be a trend. New Haven seems to be consistently overlooked and unsupported. When a school has one of the biggest, if not the biggest, percentage of below-level incoming kindergartners, should that not prove reason for an additional teacher? Especially noting that historically, students move in throughout the year. The numbers projected are often higher than the actual numbers at the start of the year because that is the population of our school. They register super late and even after school begins. Just look at the data. We have had teachers pulled away last minute that were slotted for kindergarten, only to then overwhelm our classrooms and teachers as predicted. New Haven had 25 and 26 kindergartners per class when I had to push for this same issue with my oldest child in 2018. This year, the 2 teachers started with 22 and 23 and are now at 27 and 28 kids. There seems to be no policy to keep these tiny brand new learners at a desirable ratio, which is 17, by the way. Even if we had low numbers well into the year, is that not wonderful for our Title I school to have desirable DESI numbers and more success? Is that not what Title schools should have? Please don't pull our support away anymore. There needs to be some better policies on class sizes for young learners, especially Title schools. These teachers are tired of waiting on equity that has not been coming. We need more support. The teachers are incredible at New Haven. They do everything they can to carry the burdens of inequity placed upon our school year after year. I've brought this up before, as have the staff of the school. New Haven needs an assistant principal. We are a Title I school with the largest ELL population of any elementary. No matter the size of the school, a principal does not have the time, energy, nor capacity to cover all the duties of an AP as well, especially at a title school with ever-increasing needs. If you look at the numbers in our building in the last 5 years, you will see higher than ever teacher turnover, an increase in behavior issues, and a decrease in parent involvement. I've watched CPS change boundaries to pull almost all stable family homes from our school population and create a Title I school with hardly any extra support than they used to have without that classification. It's not equitable. I've seen great families who did get involved leave to do private school and homeschooling. I've seen and heard and felt the changes as a parent and as a PSTO board member. The amount of money to pay an AP to help keep the morale and support up at the school is a way better investment than continually replacing teachers year after year. So please give New Haven the equity and staffing that it deserves, and then leave it there. Don't pull it. Thank you for listening and for advocating for our school.
Thank you to all of our community members that gave public comment tonight. We will move on to Scholar Voice. Tonight we will hear from student government representatives from all three of our comprehensive high schools. We will have Michael Powell from Rockbridge High School, Ruth Ruta from Hickman High School, and Brooke Bliven from Battle High School.
Can you hear me, everybody? Hello. All right. Good evening. Good evening to the board and to members of the public. My name is Michael Powell, and I am the president of the Rockbridge Student Coalition. We are an organization that focuses on student advocacy and school improvement through administrative cooperation and collaboration with other clubs at our school. We survey the student body to provide useful data to all levels of district administration and inform our own advocacy and lead school improvement projects such as murals and outdoor seating areas while working with other clubs to provide resources and opportunities for the student body. The Scholar Voices portion of this evening will be broken down into 3 segments for each of our schools. The first, you'll see it on the board there, what we are celebrating at each of our respective schools, some of our upcoming events, and some opportunities that we are exploring at Rockbridge to grow our school communities. So starting at the top of the list, at Rockbridge we are currently celebrating Black History Month. Our MAC scholars have been on the announcement system every morning celebrating a proud history and inspirational people and setting up wonderful displays in the halls. We thank them for that. We also just recently hosted the Como Classic Debate Tournament, which I am told was a rousing success and a great opportunity for our students in speech and debate. We are also celebrating Valentine's Day at Rockbridge. The season of love is upon us. This has sparked a lot of fundraisers, including candygrams and flower sales in collaboration with Feeding Missouri, which I think is a very good cause, and I'm happy to see that that is all going well. We have some upcoming events at Rockbridge, namely our blood drive. This is always an immensely popular one. The Red Cross loves us because this is a good, easy way to get students, well, I don't want to say this, but students kind of like to get out of class to donate blood, so, you know, and they like to receive blood, so it's good. Also, for every unit donated, there is additional money that is matched towards senior scholarships, which is very important for our students as they try and navigate financial hardships going into college. The Bruinthon Charity Dance is coming up, as well as our spring sports season, and the Rockbridge High School Show Choir Charity Benefit is coming up as well. Lots of money going into our communities through our schools. Some opportunities we're exploring at Rockbridge to grow our school community. We have just recently put in a new outdoor seating area in our south lot. We are investigating some methods to improve our school lunch experiences in collaboration with the PTSA at Rockbridge. And we are working with our student newspaper to try and improve student journalism and at the same time enable our clubs to develop some more equitable facilities for our female students at the school. Thank you for your time, and I will pass us over to Hickman.
Hello, I am Root Retta. I am here representing Hickman High School. I don't really like talking about myself, so lean. Okay, sorry. One of the things that we're currently celebrating is the Culture Fair, which was on Friday, January 19th, which isn't exactly current. However, it was one of the biggest events that we've had this semester, and it meant a lot to a lot of our students because it was one of the first few times in years that people of color have gotten like a chance to really like show who we are and put the diversity in Tide. So that was an amazing chance. I didn't get a chance to put it on here. However, the mental wellness fair that was last semester on December 6th was one of the better things that we've gotten to celebrate as well, because it was a chance for us students to finally have access to resources for our mental health that a lot of us never knew that we had. Some upcoming events at Hickman are the Black History Month Assembly, which will be next week, I believe on February 21st, I'm not sure. However, that was amazing. It got a lot of feedback from the previous year where students said it was one of the better events as well, where we got to showcase our community, both in the school from the way the students were up there hosting, but also from the community involvement with the high steppers that got to come in and perform. Some opportunities we're exploring at Hickman to grow our school community is having more real-world activities and assignments that connect our courses so that our students have higher levels of engagement. One issue that we face at Hickman after talking to multiple students and classes is that a lot of the structure is the same. As much as we love our teachers and we understand that they work hard to give us an education, a lot of it is repetitive. It's continuous notes and listening. A lot of it puts a lot of pressure on us, but it doesn't ever apply to the real world, and we've had a lot of issue moving forward. That's things I've heard from graduates, and it's also things I've learned from other teachers that take a different approach to education. Another opportunity that we need is increased communication about what opportunities and resources we have. As a Max Scholar, I am fortunate enough to be involved in a club that gives me access to resources and services. However, a lot of them come from outside sources. A lot of times I know that we as clubs will send out information to teachers, but oftentimes we're met with no feedback. A lot of times we have faced teachers just disregarding our message. That's all.
My name is Brooke Bliven. I'm a senior at Battle, and I can't wait to tell you about some of the amazing things we've accomplished this year to engage the community and get them involved in our people, programs, and outcomes at Battle. So what exactly have we been celebrating? Well, women athletes are definitely having their moment at Battle this year. Our girls wrestling team won Battle for the belt, and we had the opportunity to host the Wonder Woman tournament. For those who are unfamiliar, that is the nation's largest girls wrestling tournament. So our school also celebrated the success of other female athletes on National Girls and Women's Sports Day. I want to take this time to congratulate our 3 WIN Award nominees, Macy Hansen, Jackie Rogers, and Sammy Simmons. She's here tonight. I love her. And results will be announced February 20th. Well, I'll be rooting for them. Battle has the opportunity to reach outside their community this year by raising over $6,000 for the St. Baldrick's Foundation during our courtwarming celebrations. Some of the things you can look forward to this year is the installation of our Peace Pole through a partnership between Como Interact and Metro Rotary. Battle Interactors were able to acquire $6,000 to cover installation costs. That grant money was also used to certify a counselor in teen mental health first aid training, so we can teach our students the importance of mental health and how they can help others who might be struggling. Students in the Battle Youth Kindness Ambassadors chapter secured another grant in partnership with Children's Grove to create a new student-made mural, which is shown here. It's pretty cool. I like it a lot. So if you're ever in the building, you should definitely stop by, give it a look. That's a lot of hard work that went into it. We're also excited for our annual fundraiser, Battle for the Ages, that's happening April 13th. That will raise money for activities, clubs, sports, scholarships, and grants. It can be a challenge to fundraise at Battle because of pre-existing connections local businesses have with other schools. We can't wait to see the board and administration at this event because your connections with the community and local businesses will ensure Battle for the Ages is a success. We have lots of things to be proud of and to look forward to, but we do have our challenges. Battle administration is taking attendance seriously. Students are being held accountable and cannot enter dances or sporting events without meeting attendance expectations. After this step was taken, our attendance has improved. However, some of our students serve essential roles in their families, serving as caretakers and providers. Because of this, Battle requires unique solutions to fix the attendance problem. Our students are counting on the community and district leadership to workshop continued improvements. As we raise attendance and continue to build community, we also expect participation in clubs and sports to increase. Current practice space in our building is tight, to say the least, so investment in facilities and grants for club expansions and support should be our goals for the near future. I'm extremely proud to be a Battle Spartan, and the opportunities and mentorship that our incredible teachers provide has set my peers and I up for success. We invite the community to help us continue our mission to be Battle Built. Thank you.
Thank you again, Michael Powell from Rockbridge, Root Ruta from Hickman, and Brooke Bliven from Battle. Thank you for talking to us about what's going on at your school, and we appreciate you demonstrating such excellent leadership at your age. I'm not going to say how young you are because that makes me sound old. We'll move on to reports from our Columbia, Missouri State Teachers Association President, Carrie Stith, followed by the Columbia, Missouri National Education Association President, Noel Gilzo.
Good evening. I would just like to start by saying thank you for always listening to our feedback that we give you guys. I know that during COVID, we met and talked about with CMNEA about bringing scholar voice in, and that is a highlight of everybody's board meeting. So we really appreciate that you guys always listen and accept our feedback. Thank you. Glad to have nicer weather this evening. I just wanted to start by congratulating Noel. You have been an amazing addition to our CPS family. You have taken on so many new things, and as you are getting your certification, it's proving that you go above and beyond to be the best board secretary. You took on all the new technology with ease. We're so proud. Thank you for all that you do to make sure that these board meetings and all board matters run smoothly. Thank you for everything that you have done and will continue to do. This evening, it was great to see so many teachers from across the district being recognized for outstanding work. As we look at data this evening, we would like to remind everyone that teachers are more than numbers. Teachers teach students, not numbers. All teachers understand that assessments and data are needed and essential and is required. Don't forget that behind these numbers are teachers working hard to build relationships, take care of students' mental health needs, teach students how to be friends, and so much more. And also teach them curriculum and the joy of learning. We know that the board has always used the data to help provide us with resources to help us grow. And that is what every teacher in this district wants to continue to see. Teachers are looking forward to parent-teacher conferences coming up in a few weeks. It's always a great time to meet with parents and share successes. Teachers are sharing that they are seeing an improvement in attendance as well as parent involvement. But we know there is still work to be done, and that is where we will all work together to get there. Thank you for the presentation too tonight on the Como Ed program. We love this program. It shows the commitment to a diverse community of educators. Thank you for supporting programs like this that benefit our schools, community, and students. As teachers, we hope to continue to see this program grow. We wanted to say thank you to Dr. Yearwood, several coordinators, and board members, President Waters, Mrs. Fiaro, and Mrs. Snodgrass for attending and reading to Battle Elementary students for World Read Aloud Day. This was a great day filled with Battle students. I would like to give a special shout out to Sammy Simmons, the athletic director, who coordinated over 70 Battle High School students coming to the elementary school to read to our students. It was amazing. We also had Mizzou Athletics parents, the Columbia Fire Department, local author Aaron Fox, and even Mayor Barbara Buffalo came to read to our Battle Lions. We hope to see more events like this to grow the love of reading in our students. Thank you for all that you do every day to support our students, teachers, and community.
You can probably tell who I was cheering for yesterday. Good evening, Kansas City football fans. I was again so impressed by their performance last night at the Super Bowl. I'm impressed not only because they pulled off a back-to-back championship, which hasn't been done in 20 years or so, but because of the grit and determination the team displays. Yes, they won a nail-biter in overtime, despite several mistakes along the way. But the grit came into play much earlier in the season. You see, they weren't supposed to even make the playoffs, given their rocky mid-season. Once they made the playoffs as a wild card, they were the underdogs in all 3 games leading up to the championship, even beating the Ravens, who were predicted to win it all. Every time people underestimate this team, they come out ahead. I can't help but see parallels to some of our schools in CPS. Despite the odds, they are crushing it. Tonight, you will hear about the progress our elementary and middle schools are making with iReady scores, which correlate to MAP and EOC state tests administered each spring that factor into our MSIP ratings. CPS has a stated goal of a 3% increase in the number of students achieving advanced or proficient ratings. Several schools met this goal, comparing iReady scores from last winter to this winter. Especially notable were the schools that accomplished this goal in both reading and math. These schools include elementary schools Alpha Hart, Parkade, West Boulevard, Locust Street, Russell, and Ridgeway, as well as Smithton Middle School. They should be celebrated. Teachers and students alike have worked very hard for these gains and should rightfully be recognized for their efforts. Clearly, there are some good things happening instructionally at these schools that should be emulated elsewhere. I did just say despite the odds. Some schools are crushing it. What do I mean by that? And I meant to hand out some papers to you, I'm sorry. Here is where we need to dig into the numbers shared with us. Where individual school iReady data is shared in terms of school-by-school growth, I chose to look at the disparities between the title and non-title elementary school average performances in terms of percent proficient or advanced ratings for both reading and math. The averages were starkly different. In non-title schools, the average of 52% of students earned proficient or advanced ratings in reading, and an average of 32% earned those ratings in math. On the other hand, in title schools, the average earning proficient or advanced for reading was 28%, while the average for those ratings in math was 13%. For middle school comparisons, I grouped Gentry, Smithton, Jeff, and John Warner together as non-title eligible, and Oakland, Lang, and West together as title eligible. The differences were similar. The non-title eligible middle schools averaged 56% earning proficient or advanced ratings in reading, and 45% earning those ratings in math. The title eligible middle schools had lower averages, earning proficient or advanced, 26% for reading, 15% for math. Those differences seemed significant to me, but I wanted to be sure. So I asked a qualified expert to conduct t-tests to determine if these differences were significant. The results are in your hands. Well, they will be shortly. The p-value tells you the degree of certainty that the difference is significant. For example, a p-value of 0.05 would indicate that we are 95% sure the difference is not due to chance. The p-values on these tests ranged between 0.006 and less than 0.001. Meaning that we can be 99.4 to 99.9% plus sure that the differences are not due to chance. The box plots provided give a visual representation of the gaps between the school groupings ratings. So, why share these numbers and analysis, besides being like an eternal nerd? I absolutely do want to celebrate schools who have demonstrated growth with student performance in reading and math. What I'm hoping to point out is that there are larger systemic issues contributing to student achievement. While we might be tempted to focus on school or even teacher effect size on student growth, we must make adjustments to the district systems that contribute to these statistically significant disparities. I admit, again, I'm a bit of a numbers nerd, but I also really enjoy team sports like football, and I tend to be very competitive. But I know that sharing scatter plots of even anonymous teacher effect size data can create troubling perceptions that there are winners and losers in teaching. Unlike football, teaching is not a competitive sport. These days, we wouldn't ever consider ranking students in this way, and we shouldn't with teachers either. We teachers love and nurture our students and are so much more than data points. Thank you.
Thank you to our teacher group representatives. We will move on to Dr. Yearwood's report, and we'll hear from him first on an achievement update. We're very excited.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening, President Waters, school board members. Here to talk about accountability and our data. As you know, we started on this pathway of really starting to measure where we are as a district through looking at our iReady data, which started about over a year ago. We did this because we wanted to measure how are we actually inspiring greatness in our scholars. Where can we see greatness? Now, we have great programs. We have great athletes. We have great fine arts. We have great things happening. We have fantastic teachers and phenomenal scholars. But are we truly being great? And the mechanisms that we use, of course, is knowing which direction we want to go as a district through, number one, our vision. Our vision statement says we want to be the best school district in the state. It doesn't say we want to be the second best or the maybe kind of so school district. We want to be the best. Why? Why? Because when we are the best, guess who gets the best? And guess who performs at the best? It's our scholars. We don't want to produce mediocre scholars. We don't want to produce scholars that are so kind of shaky. We want the best for every scholar in our district. And how are we going to do that? Through realizing our mission. Our mission to provide the best education for all. And of course, we have our values. We developed a system where we looked at this vision and mission that drives us, that came from our community and our staff. And from there, we broke into the strategic plan. From our strategic plan, we got our goals. And from our goals, we had our focus areas, which led to development of our milestones. So as we looked at these, what bubbled up is, one, we must create high expectations, not for some scholars, but for all scholars. And our data must show that. We must improve our core instruction, because we cannot become the best or say we have high expectations if our core instruction is not the best. And we can improve that. And we're getting there with our phenomenal teachers and staff. It's happening, as we'll see in the data later on. And then, to bring it all together, we must have foundational knowledge called an instructional framework, a place that we can go to understand all things instructional, which we did not have before. Now, we're in the midst of developing that, and we'll be seeing more about that moving forward. Our continuous school improvement plan. This came in from input from our community, from our teachers, from different staff members meeting. And here's a prime example. It says 90% of scholars will attend school 90% of the time. And we've seen the data about what happens in reading and math when our scholars are there 90% of the time. So at this point, I will sit down and let the true professionals come forth and talk to us about the data as we talk about being or getting to be the best system in the state. Dr. Wilson.
Good evening, everyone. So what you have before you is something that our principals present to the board on a regular basis, as you know, but we want to make sure that the board sees the overall district rates and results as well. And so these first few slides relate to goal 3.1 that Dr. Yearwood mentioned. You know, the percent of scholars who are proficient or advanced on the map will increase by 3% each year starting this year. And of course, our audit findings, where we want to make sure that we're disaggregating our groups and looking at underperforming groups to see that they're improving as well. This slide looks at winter to winter. I'm so sorry, can you guys see it? No. You can? I feel like I need to wait for just a minute. Yes, okay. Not any good ones. No. All right, so now you actually have something to look at except for my face. All right, so the data that you see on this screen and on the next screen compares last winter's iReady to this winter's iReady. And that's a really important distinction that I want to make, that it is across years instead of within a year. So as we have mentioned several times, iReady correlates very well with the end result of MAP. And so what we want to see is a steady progression upward in our proficiency rates on iReady so that we know whether we are slated to meet or exceed our MAP results for the spring. Well, I am pleased to say that in reading, we are very much on track. What you're seeing on this screen, first off, though, is our K through 2 on grade level reading and math. So you can see that sorry, there's stuff on my screen. I don't know if you can see it, but it's annoying me. In the fall of last year, reading was 47% proficient or advanced, and in the winter of this year, winter of last year, winter of this year is 55%, which is an 8% increase over last year, which is darn impressive. That is a considerable gain, considering that 2/3 of the kids are the same kids that came through last year in the winter. In math, it went from 38% to 44%, and as you look through the individual subgroups, you can see that almost every single subgroup and certainly every single grade level in K through 2 improved from winter to winter. Okay, so when we look at winter to winter in grades 3 through 8, we're looking at prediction of MAP. Not the MAP results themselves, obviously, but the prediction of MAP. So I always say that if we were to stop school today and take the MAP, this is what our likely proficiency rate would be on the MAP. And you can see that in reading, we went from 40% last winter to 43% this winter, which means we are very much on track for our goal in reading of a 3% increase year over year. So if that trend continues into the spring, which we believe it will, then we're looking at a 3% gain in reading on the MAP results. And what's truly impressive about this is that 3% gain that we're seeing, what we're seeing in the winter right now is what we saw in the spring last year. So that is a huge improvement. Math, we've got a little further to go. We did have a 2% increase from last year to this year, 27% to 29%, which is really, really good. It's good that we're improving in that area. Interestingly, last year we had a significant jump, I believe it was about 9%, from winter to spring in math. And we asked our coordinators a little bit about that, and what we believe is happening there is that we're building those standards in the fall, and then when we come around in winter, we're rounding out those standards and they're finally able to do the full standard by the time they take the MAP test, and then there's a big increase in proficiency. So we're anticipating seeing that same jump this year so that it's at least above where we were last year, but also above a higher proficiency rate. And in math, in 3 through 8, again, you can see that almost every subgroup improved, which is, again, a very impressive feat from winter to winter. It's the best way that we have to compare apples to apples. One thing that I want to say on these is it's not only about proficiency rates. What this one shows is growth, okay? It doesn't matter where you started. What matters is how much you can grow. And so in this, what we're looking for is how much we can grow from winter to winter, from spring to spring. If we see something flat, if it was 40% in winter and 40% in winter this year, then we would predict that we would have basically the same MAP results in the spring. But that is not what we're seeing. We're seeing a nice improvement in both areas. This one is a more traditional graph that you guys have seen in prior years. This is our within year growth. Remember, the others were from one year to the next. This is from within the year. And so you can see that in reading, we started off the year with 32% of our scholars being in the proficient or advanced range, and we've grown them already in the winter to 43%, as you saw. And it's only going to get better from here on out. And in math, we started off at 17% proficient. And remember, that's end of year standards, right? So you shouldn't expect all of our kids to be on proficiency level in the fall, but we want to grow them as much as we can by the spring. And so you can see we've already had a double-digit gain in math as well. So that data is looking really good. And we, of course, have our Lexile and Quantile data up there. You might see a little bit of differences in the Quantile. We've been working with Dr. B to adjust some of those ranges to make them coincide a little bit more with our proficiency growth. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan, Dr. Day.
Yes, if you don't mind, Dr. Wilson, can you just go back 2 slides for me?
Two.
One more. And if you notice on each slide, on these slides, we refer to the audit findings.
Yeah.
Where we talk about from our audit, our curriculum audit, it says that we needed to look at our students representing specific groups because they were underperforming. That's why we have the data. Anything you
Yeah,
want
I
to add?
mentioned that when you were walking out of the room. So
Oh, okay.
That's why,
Okay.
but
all
thank
right.
you for bringing that up.
That's what I get for being absent.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay.
Obviously, attendance does matter. But don't, yeah. So, there's Joe. See, I always got a couple in my pocket there, yeah. So this in front of you now is listing the elementary schools. This is their 3 through 5 data from last year, this winter test to now. And as you can see by all the green arrows going up, we've had a lot of growth. Very proud of our teachers and our scholars and our principals for working very hard in our buildings. In reading and math both, there were 16 of the 21 schools had increases. In reading, our average increase was 3.6. We're striving to get that 3, so we're right there. In math, our average increase was 3.3. Very proud of a couple schools in reading. West Boulevard went up 16.6% from last year, and Alpha Hart went up 8.5% from last year, both Title I schools. So they are doing a good job growing their kids. In math, Locust Street went up 16.9, and Russell went up 9.7. So those are some schools that are really, really doing a great job. I'm also very proud of our 4 comprehensive schools of improvement in elementary. They had an average increase in math of 3.6, which is above the average for the district. So very proud of them. Those are schools that are identified as the lowest performing, are really working hard and kicking it in gear. They're not exactly where they want to be for their proficiency levels, but they're making their growth. They've got to grow in order to get where they want to be. And final thing that I think is very exciting is 9 of our schools in reading have already exceeded their proficiency level from MAP last year, halfway through the year. So we keep those kiddos growing. We're going to have some great growth by the end of the year. Very excited for that. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Taylor, my counterpart for secondary.
Good evening. The trend continues at the middle school level. So what you can see here is, like Dave was telling, Dr. Wilson was telling us, we are looking at the winter assessment from last year to the winter assessment for this year. On the left-hand column in the area of reading, you can see all 7 of our middle schools had increased performance in the areas of reading proficiency. All 6 of the 7 schools, in fact, have already reached their benchmark of what they tested at on the MAP score for the previous school year. So 6 of our 7 middle schools have 4 months of school left, but are already predicted to have higher scores on the MAP than they did the previous school year. So I think that's certainly something to applaud. 4 of our schools had greater than 5% increases, with an average of 3.6 in the area of reading. So once again, looking at our CSIP and our BSIP, maintaining that average of 3% is something that we're having conversations with our schools on consistently. In the area of math, you can see, like Dr. Wilson was talking about, we do have a little bit more growth. Want to give a shout out to Oakland and Smithton for that 3% increase that we're looking for once again. But those are the only 2 schools that are seeing that 3% growth. We're at an average of about 0.3% in the area of math. And like Dr. Wilson was talking about, we've had a lot of conversations with our coordinators to try to figure out why maybe we're seeing a difference between ELA and math, because we've done a lot of curricular work in both areas. The easiest way to kind of explain it, if you think about kindergarten standard of counting to 100, the standard for the whole year is to count to 100. In the first semester, you're going to count to 10 and then learn to count by 10s. By the end of the year, the goal is to count by 100. And we see more growth in the spring than we do in the fall. Whereas ELA, you're learning those comprehension of literacy strategies from the beginning of the semester all the way throughout the end of through the school year. So that was just a great conversation that we had in a meeting as we immediately started to dive into this data. Once again, I didn't mention, but two of our schools in the area of literacy that we're seeing huge improvements are Lang, which is one of our comprehensive school improvement schools, and Smithton as well. So just really excited to see the growth of 5 and 7% from those two schools. We've consistently had conversations about this data with each of our principals. They're very much aware of it, and we're working to increase it every day.
Good evening. So we're going to go back to tying achievement and attendance together for a minute. So if you'll recall, a couple of months ago, we showed you a slide that looked at attendance and MAP results. So here's another one that shows attendance and iReady results. So this one includes K2, whereas MAP could not. Scholars who are in attendance greater than 80% or 90%, of the time are 5 times more likely to be on or above grade level in math, and 4.7 times more likely in reading. So this is a really important message for our parents and for our community about attendance matters. That's why we continue to stress the importance of having our scholars be in school every single day. So now we're going to take a look at cumulative attendance. So if we look at our numbers from last year to this year, we are at 80.5 currently. So while we are excited at that 80.5, we really don't want to get comfortable there. We want principals to continue to push closer to the 85 to 90% range. We have to remember that 80% is the minimum that we need to receive any points on the MSIP. And so 80% of our scholars in attendance 90% of the time still means that we have a significant portion of our scholars who are not in attendance regularly. It's important for parents to hear that a scholar who misses up to 17 days of school can still meet that 90% threshold. So again, we have many scholars who are missing several more days than that. So as a reminder, we need our kiddos in school every single day. By grade level, as a reminder, this line moves diagonally. So while we're seeing increases in most grades, you'll notice that last year's 5th graders, who are this year's 6th graders, are showing a decline in attendance. And some of that may have to do with some information that I'll address on the next slide. Additionally, there is a slight decline in last year's 7th graders, who are this year's 8th graders, and the ongoing challenges of our 10th to 12th grade students, whose attendance continues to decline through their senior year. So we're hopeful that some of the alternative things that we're putting in place will produce an increase in those numbers as this year continues. Yes?
That graph right there, the lower numbers for 8th through 12th, is that 77.1% of the time 8th graders are there 90% of the time of attendance, or is that a 77.1% attendance just in general?
77, okay, where are you?
Looking at 8th grade.
Looking at 8th grade. So yes, 77.1% of our scholars are in attendance 90% of the time. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So as we take a deeper look into individual schools, I want to reiterate what's been shared a couple of times earlier this evening, that this is not in any way meant to disparage any specific schools. When we are all doing better, we all do better, right? So again, we know that our board wanted to see this information broken out, but really it's to highlight how well we're doing overall and to continue to be transparent. So you'll notice at the elementary level, only 3 of our schools have decreased in attendance from the 2023 school year at this time. And even then, if you'll notice, it's just really by minor percentages. So for instance, Battle Elementary from 73.8% to 73.6%. And in fact, if we look at New Haven, they are back up to 77.9% as of last Friday. So we know that those numbers will continue to increase. 18 of our schools have shown increases, as you'll also notice on the screen. So that's super exciting. At the secondary level, only 1 middle school showed a very slight decrease in attendance. And we know that high school, which has consistently been a challenge, has shown more significant decreases, which is why we are continuing our push at the high school level. And you heard the scholars mention earlier about some of the other challenges that our high school students face. So we're going to continue to work with them. So now let's take a look at our OSS and behavior incident information. Again, it's exciting to see the decreases in all areas of behavior incidents. Schools have been really, really intentional about getting to the why of situations and trying to ensure that they are following the behavior education plan that we just recently reviewed with you and assigning appropriate consequences for behavior. So what the numbers also show is that in every subgroup, and the demographics there has continued to be a decrease in OSS. By grade level, once again, this line moves diagonally. So we see that really our biggest increase in OSS from last year's fifth graders, who are now sixth graders this school year. So we're really asking the fifth grade and sixth grade teams to dive in a little deeper. A lot of times it's that transition to middle school. Are we adequately preparing them in fifth grade, or what are sixth grade expectations to make sure that those are leveling out? Again, if there's an adjustment in middle school expectations that need to be addressed regarding newly entering middle schoolers, we can combine some of that work with the work that we're doing with our fifth graders. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to Dr. Yearwood.
So things are happening trending in the right direction. For the most part, we're seeing lots of positives. We're seeing growth, which is what we want to see. Small steps, small incremental steps. And we celebrate those. And that, again, goes back to the hard work of our teachers who come to school every day, the hard work of our scholars, and the support they have from their parents, and of course, their school administration. So as we look at some of the positives, again, we mentioned our winter scores already matching or surpassing where we were same time last year. And that's very, very important because we're measuring apples to apples. We're saying in January of last year, we're comparing January of last year to January of this year. So we're seeing that there's definite positive things happening. 76% of our buildings increasing in scores, already matched scores being higher than they were at this time last year. Attendance, even attendance, although it's small, there's some small growth happening, we're still seeing that it's trending in the right direction. Out-of-school suspensions down 21%, in-school suspensions down 47%, office referrals being down 14%. Phenomenal growth. Things are happening at the schools. The opportunities, of course, we still have some growth needed in math, and we're working towards that, determining areas that we need to really focus in on. And it's happening. You know, as we look at what's happening in some of the math classrooms and the innovation that's starting to go into them, I think we're going to get there. Of course, we want to see attendance getting closer to 85%, so that, again, our scholars can continue to grow and thrive and be successful with their outcomes. And I think, again, now that we have a laser focus on the data, we should be seeing that, because data is what we must use to drive, to intentionally drive our academic actions. Without the data, we're flying blind. We must have that data. Okay. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Moore and Dr. Porter to take us in.
We showed this to you last month. We just wanted to remind you of our plans to address our APR data, and you can see a lot of that reflected in our iReady data, our discipline and our attendance. But these points are still being talked about. We had a meeting last Friday, and we made sure our coordinators and my team were on board with these, and still striving to really establish these foundationally in our schools.
So what you don't see here are the amount of meetings, the number of observations, the number of coaching sessions that all take place to make sure that these things happen. So I'm going to give you a couple. I'm going to say 4,002. There are 4,002 opportunities that administrators, coaches, and other teachers have had documented to step into each other's environment and support. Coaching, 4,002. Over 1,700 opportunities for building-wide events, meetings to discuss instructional practices. These are the things that are currently taking place. And so I wanted to make sure that we put those numbers behind it, because if you think about it, that's 32 individuals who's doing that. It's 32 individuals getting in 4,002 times. I'm gonna let that sit in for a second. With the responsibility of growing 18,500 students, 3,000 employees total, 1,500 teachers. And those 32 individuals are stepping in 4,002 different times to address instructional needs. So when we hear the 3% growth, when we see how buildings are growing, it is because of the data that has driven action that we can get to that point. So we continue to look at it so that we can continue to curb our actions towards what do we need to do to help support the 3% growth, the 4% growth, the 5% growth across the board. So I want to share that with you rather than talking about all of the bullet points that are present here. 4,002, 32 individuals, 1,700 various meetings, events across our community, our school community, to make sure that we can address these very important needs. Academic achievement, attendance, because we need our scholars to continue to grow. So that's our plan, and that's how we're addressing our APR data.
We will entertain any questions from the board.
Go ahead, Ms. Farrell.
Probably have a couple here. I notice on the chart, and we're looking at proficiency rates going from kindergarten to first grade, from second to third grade, and from sixth to seventh grade. It seems to decline, and is there a reason for that, or just an anomaly?
6 and 7, I don't have.
So I assume that you're talking about like 61% to 41%.
Yes.
And yeah. If you remember from a previous board meeting, I cautioned us at looking at the trend from kindergarten to first grade because the standards are just wildly different.
Right.
Wildly more rigorous. And that is a trend that we see. It does tend to kind of level out after about first grade, maybe even second grade. So I just want to be cautious in looking at kindergarten to first grade.
Well, yeah, that's why I mentioned second to third and sixth to seventh also.
Yeah, so
I
second
was
to
just wondering.
third, so you can't compare second to third with the data that's on here because the third grade is looking at projecting MAP, and we don't have MAP in second grade. So second grade is looking at on grade level or above.
Yep.
And so you see that distinction, that marker between K2 and 3 through 8 across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And really the standards that the state has on MAP are actually slightly above grade level. So that's why it's not quite matching.
Another question I had was, it certainly jumped out to me, just like you guys noted, that West Boulevard had incredible growth in reading and Locust had great growth in math. Whatever they're doing, can we do that at all the other places? Have we identified what that is? Because that's phenomenal.
Yeah, we certainly are having those discussions regularly with principals, but I also want to be cautious in drawing conclusions about how great an individual or a school or how poorly a school or individual is doing based off of one little jump, one data point, basically.
Yes, one thing that we're looking at very closely, we're trying to capture across the district some of the best practices that our teachers are doing. So that way we can encourage, that, because the only way you're going to get better is by seeing, okay, what's working and try to duplicate that. So That is data that's being collected now just to see what practices, so that way we can share that out with other teachers, and if they so desire, they can, go see, have that dialogue with them in our trajectory to get better.
That said, we have had some schools that have had some consistent increases. And yeah, we've been, asking them what they're doing, telling other buildings what they're doing and saying, what are you doing? Because, we want to replicate that everywhere.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, I know every school has its own unique culture and unique way of doing things, but, I like that we want to share what's working across the board to see how it will fit in with our other buildings. Thank you.
Mr. Lyman.
So April took one of mine, but specifically it was about the K1 and the 6-7, and I had questions about whether or not there was a rigor issue or whatever there, but it sounds like it's just kind of is, et cetera. So
just a cut score issue. That's all it is.
Math was a concerning part, especially, but then Dr. Taylor bringing up reading is a progressive thing and math is then of it you get it right at the very end. So that was good. Thank you for that. On slide 9, I think it's the one that's up. Benton, New Haven, and Cedar Ridge all saw decreases in reading and math. And then during public comment, we got some information about admin support, specifically in one of those schools. What is the makeup of the admin support in specifically those 3 buildings? Because first thought, I think, if this,
Do you mean how many APs?
Sure.
Okay. New Haven has the principal,
Mhm.
no APs. Benton has an assistant principal. And Cedar has an assistant and an AA, I believe. Just an AP at Cedar.
By thinking there being, I think it's probably see where my head's going with that is, if there was that additional support in there, like there was potentially in the other buildings, but doesn't sound like that is necessarily potentially the reason why.
So
we have buildings that don't have an AP or an AA, and they did rise as well. So it's not a direct correlation. I don't think.
Right now, as we're going through our budget and all, as our CFO would say, we have one pot of money, and once it's gone, it's gone. But we are looking to see possibilities of additional support. I know we added a homeschool communicator at New Haven, and we want more. It's not that we want less. We want to give more. We just have to make sure that we are operating within the confines of our budget. But that is definitely a discussion that we're having right now in ways that we can support those schools that, do not have an AP based upon the formula and things like that. That's an ongoing discussion as we speak.
I have a lot of thoughts, and so it might be less questions in that kind of way, but and it might pop up some questions as we're talking, or ways that I kind of frame things that y'all can say, hold up, you're misconstruing it, because I think that could be important. So I preface in that way just for that kind of space. I just thank y'all for what you share. I mean, I think what we're seeing broadly is that the hard work that's been going on over the last 2.5 years to really dig into our student data, to how are we supporting our staff to support our students, and how we are supporting our buildings, it's showing, right? We're seeing that growth in those ways. I think I had shared these data points with my board colleagues when we first got our APR scores out, and I know we've talked about them in certain ways, but I do think it's when we think about this too, of looking at the map, just so our community can hear it as well in this conversation too, right? We see it correlating with how MAP went this past year too, with what we're seeing here. So in our student groups for math, the MPI index score increased by 6.3 points. The math for all MPI index score increased by 5.9. The social studies student groups increased by 5.6. Those were our largest areas of growth that happened there in those areas on our MAP scores and MAP test. And so that's amazing. And when we think about sort of where our most opportunities are to gain APR points to get out of this area that we exist right now of the buffer zone of being just right above provisionally accredited. Right, for English language arts, all students, if we just increased by 2.1 MPI index points, we'll move to the on-track band for the APR, and we get +3 APR points. And that's just so our community, I mean, like, it's not that I'm trying to game the MAP test, but it's in some ways, that's the board game that's put in front of us, and that's how we get evaluated, and that's how we get told you're accredited or not. And so it's not for me about fully chasing the points, but in some ways, when that's the rules put in front of you, you got to play the game sometimes to make sure that you are meeting those spaces and not put into question the true hard work that is happening in our district. The other area where we could get some APR points is in our social studies group, student groups. So we saw some great increase from last year, right? Like I shared, 5.6. We just got to increase 0.7 more MPI index points to get a 0.5 APR score increase, right? And so I think this is where I know President Waters, I wasn't able to be here last month, and I had shared a statement asking you to kind of share that stuff. And I think that's really where this piece of embracing the fact that we got to take the ownership of all this and where it goes. And I think we're seeing that as a district. I do also, though, I think there are things that get brought up, and sometimes we don't talk about it as fully as we should, and in some ways. And I mean, I've had some difficult dialogues with constituents over the last 2 weeks that have really pointed this out. And within all of this great data and all the things that we're seeing, and I'm not trying to be the doom and gloom person, but I was pushed and challenged by constituents to really point this out. And I think it is important to point out is like, we historically have not been serving our students of color well, specifically our Black students. We have not been serving well our students with IEPs. We have not been serving well our students with that are on free and reduced lunch. And that's a historical trend when we look at our data. And that's something that isn't just due to COVID. It's a systemic thing that we as a district really do need to dig into. In saying that, I am not saying that y'all as administrators or that our staff are not trying to do that. But I do think that we got to say it, and we do have to put it there, because I think there are some folks in our community that think that we're ignoring that blatant thing that sits there. And I think it got brought up in public comment too, some other things that I've been hearing personally, but what it seems that others have been hearing as well, is that there is a sentiment somewhat throughout our district and our schools that people look at these APR scores and say, well, our school's fine, or my classroom's fine. And like I said, it got kind of brought up in public comment. If we become provisionally accredited, your school is in a provisionally accredited school district. It does not matter that your school is better in APR points. You're still a part of a provisionally accredited school district. You still work in that type of school district. And so it does take, as that public comment shared, a communal kind of aspect to address this and really look at this. And so I appreciate what y'all are doing. Everything I share, I can sound like an indictment of what y'all are doing, and I'm not meaning it in that way. I just also don't want people to believe that we don't see the things that we still need to address, and that there is still a lot of work that we're going to be going, because this is the beginning of turning a massive ship. And we just have to make sure that we are giving that space to our kids that we have been underserving for a really long time, and that we don't forget to be doing that as we are trying to work within this board game of the APR points and making sure that we keep our accreditation. Because I also, in talking with community members, I don't think they fully recognize that we are on that precipice, and that these MAP tests mean a lot right now. And it's gonna, in the next, really in 5 years, MAP test is gonna determine the next decade of trajectory for the school district. What we see tonight in all of these slides, I think proves that our staff recognize that. And so I appreciate that. I was not feeling that way until I looked over these slides in preparation for this board meeting, and I had a very different thing I was going to be saying tonight before prepping for this meeting. So I do think this is showing that we are taking this seriously, but we do have to keep our frame of mind in the fact that, Dr. Yearwood, you've said this before, we are a school system, and we all have to be supporting each other. So thank y'all. And if there's anything that I misconstrued or misunderstood, please point it out.
have a first question, then you go. I would like to ask a kind of a data question. So from where we are with winter, and you alluded to this maybe a little bit, but I need you to spell it out for me in layman's terms, please. So what is the predicted increase in proficiency from the winter diagnostic to like can we project from the winter diagnostic to what we might see on the MAP test for this year? And how does that land us as a district in growth from last year?
Okay. I will do my best on the growth piece to talk about it in layman's terms because it's a very, very complex calculation.
I mean, you can use your fancy words. I might pick them up. You never know.
I understand about 50% of it, so maybe a little bit more. So what I would say from what we can project, what we're seeing from winter to winter, 3% increase in reading, 2% increase in math, is what we believe, what we hope we will see in the spring on the map. A 3% increase over last year in ELA and a 2% increase in math. That's the trajectory we're currently on. And so that's what we're pushing people on, making sure that, because we're not giving any more iReady assessments between now and MAP. This is the game. We know what's in front of us. We know what we have to do. We need to get even better if we're going to have even better scores than that. But a 3% and a 2% increase. Now, that helps us with our, what we call the status points on the APR. So if you remember when we talked about this last month, we had the status points and we had the growth points. Status points, it's just about the MPI that Mr. Willoughby was talking about. It's about the proficiency rates, okay? You get higher proficiency rates, you get higher MPIs, you get more points. That's fairly straightforward. Growth, however, is way more complicated. They take individual scholar scores from the prior year and use that to predict what they're going to score on the next year. And then if we beat it, then we get kind of points. It doesn't translate quite that way, but kind of bonus points. If you match it exactly, okay, that's not really growth. You grew them what we expected you to grow them. But if you beat what you expected to grow, then we get extra points. If you don't beat it, then you kind of lose points. But that growth model is then ranked throughout the entire state. So if the entire state shifts up in its growth, and we don't shift up as high as the rest of the state, then we don't get as many points as we did the previous year. It is the only part of the APR that is literally a moving target every single year. Our growth on this for individual scholars, we can predict and we can say, yeah, you beat it and all of that's good to go, but we don't know what the rest of the state is going to do. And so we have to compare basically off of what we believe they've done and what they've done in the past and try to predict from there. Was that layman's enough for you? It's a very difficult subject. Every time DESE gets asked about it, they hem and they haw because they know how complex it is.
Yep, I can understand that it is very complex. As a follow-up question, which is like, it's fine if you just say, I actually don't know.
Okay.
Do we, based on this data, are you able to extrapolate points of it and predict like what our APR would look like if this is how it all shakes out? Like if our attendance stays the same, if our growth matches, like what are we looking at APR wise?
Yeah, so we've been asked that question a number of times, and there are pieces of it, yes, that we can do. There are other pieces of it that we just have to assume are going to stay the same in order to make some kind of prediction. Growth is one that is absolutely impossible for us to predict. Graduation rate, we can get really close, but we depend on information from other school districts that we don't have, but that state has to determine the actual graduation rate. Though we're so close this year, if we don't get it, it's going to be really heartbreaking again. I mean, we were within 2 scholars of getting it this last year. And I think we're within 2 scholars of getting it again this year. So we just got to get those 2 scholars back in school, right? Get them graduated. So there, like I said, there are pieces of it that we can predict. There's others that we can't. And we are working on that model as best as we can. We could swing as many as 4 or 5 percentage points if all of the other things hold steady based off of what we're seeing. And when I say swing, I mean swing up, not down. So it is possible for us to swing up that much, but we don't know for sure. So in short, I don't know, as you said.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Mr. Lyman, I think you had another comment.
Yeah, I was just going back through and looking at and thinking about our fifth graders last year who have transitioned and our sixth graders this year. They get in, I mean, to put it bluntly, they get in trouble more and they don't come to school as often. Is kind of the OSS numbers were going up in specifically that cohort. The attendance was going down specifically in that cohort. I was trying to see if that was also then trending that same way in their iReady scores. It doesn't look like it is. When we're looking at attendance and OSS going up, is that included then in that, to where if we just got OSS to go down for those kids, then, I mean, they're in school now. Are you saying is the OSS data included in that? Correct, yeah. So then what are we doing with this group of kids? I was going back and looking at the presentation in October when we first started to look at it by class, and it was the same then, and it's the same now. That just those fifth graders that are now our sixth graders are just that. I know middle school is tough, but what additionally can we do to help keep those kids on the straight and narrow?
I don't have all the answers on how to keep them on the straight and narrow, but I do think it's a combination of things. I think it's a better preparation, perhaps, from the fifth grade to sixth grade trajectory, and preparation, and getting our scholars into the middle schools a little bit earlier to see what the expectations are. And then having taught middle school and sixth grade specifically, myself for several years, a really realistic expectation of what the fifth graders' behaviors are going to be like when you're coming in. And so a lot of that, sometimes the middle school mindset can be a little bit more like, you should know better now, and these are the expectations. And just really, I frequently thought of my sixth graders as bigger fifth graders. And so just that little bit longer trajectory, a little bit more runway to train. The expectations were still high, the goals were still set, but just a little bit more runway to get you where you needed to go, modeling and those types of things.
Like to add to that. That's why we're exploring that alternative school system. Because right now, for OSS, a scholar goes home. That's it. We don't know what happens after that. What we're hoping to cut down on is, instead of sending them home, Mrs. London is leading the charge there with the team to look at an alternative environment where they can continue the educational process. If you add up all these days, close to, about 1,000 days that our scholars are not in seat. And we have to break that. And so that's why we've been exploring Mrs. London. We're looking at several models. She was able to contact multiple schools, and she's working with Dr. Porter, Mr. Moore, the entire team, to really look at establishing that environment where they don't just go for discipline. We don't want a dumping ground where you just, hey, go there for discipline. We want an environment where, number one, we continue the educational process. Number two, we're able to come in with more social skills, talk about self-regulating behaviors, talk about things that would allow them to sort of control or better understand their feelings in the school environment. So I think that will also have another impact on student outcomes when we're not having to send them home all this. But we're exploring that right now. We're hoping that if things work out, we'll start the school year. Please don't hold me to this, but our dream is to start the school year with that in place. That's our dream right now.
Ms. Farrell.
I actually had that also, but Carla had mentioned it earlier, so I didn't bring it up. But my observation, we have 21 elementary schools, is that correct? And we now have 7 middle schools. So as we talked earlier, we have different cultures and sizes of classes at every school. My child started 6th grade a decade ago, and it was the absolute worst experience of our lives, that transition from 5th to 6th. And a lot of it has to do with class sizes, how their school environment worked as opposed to what works at the middle school, how the other kids worked in their schools and those expectations. And there's a lot of things there to explore that I think we could have a lot of positives there to get kids a good transition there, and then have this other as another opportunity. But that absolutely jumped out at me. But it's not a new phenomenon. At least it was not in my family. High school, for any parents out there, 8th grade to high school was a breeze.
I will also throw in there that there's a lot of freedom that comes, a little more freedom that comes with middle school. And so just teaching our young people how to manage and navigate that freedom a little bit more. You're not being walked to class and those things, yeah.
Thank you very much for the very thorough presentation, and we look forward to many more of these. We're doing it very regularly, which the board expects, and we applaud. And we're going to get a quick long-range planning update from Mr. Gooch. Just because we are in the middle of attendance area discussions, and we want to make sure we keep that front and center.
Yes, we are. So thank you for the opportunity to talk. I'm just going to cover a few things that really basically I covered in long range last week. Last week, we conducted 2 days worth of focus groups with our consultant from Cooperative Strategies. We had 7 of those groups. We listened to a lot of folks, and we were simply trying to kind of get the big issues out on the table so that they can start building some scenarios so we can really start talking about details. So what really transpired, and it's kind of interesting, this is the 3rd one of those I've done with Cooperative Strategies, large attendance area at work over a 5-year period. And what happened was really there's 2 major issues that came out the first time I did it. The second time I did it, it was similar, and this time it was very similar as well. And those 2 issues are this. There's always a desire to have a more favorable balance of socioeconomic demographics in schools, and there's always a desire to also have proximity as a major importance, so students are close to their schools and parents are close to the schools so they can get to them and interact. Sometimes those two major ideas kind of clash when we start working with really where people live. And that is not new. So one thing that's kind of emerging, and I think it's good, is kind of a 3rd rail, I call it. And it's really looking better, planning for actual allocation of instructional space. A lot of times we work with very ratio based, which is an architectural calculation, how many students can safely fit in a building and that sort of thing, but that doesn't always reflect the way that we teach, the way that instruction happens. And so we're looking at that as we're going through this a lot more closely. So I think will be some of the aha discussion. We had a couple groups that came up with some really, really innovative ways to approach this. So we made sure we captured those ideas. We'll probably be bringing to you a couple of scenarios when we get to maps that just specifically answer or address those issues. So it was some really good new thinking. That's really where we're at. We're going to be working just to kind of finish paint out the timeline for you. We're going to be doing some of that internal work on that 3rd rail, and because it's not necessarily hardcore boundary work, it's a lot of internal things and what we're doing and how could we change that. So we'll be working on that. And then we'll start bringing to the long-range planning committee, to the internal work group, a lot of scenarios, and we'll kind of par those down a little bit, and then we'll start bringing those to you and just talk about that, and you can give some instructions then as well to our consultant. And then ultimately our goal is in that second half of May, we'll be conducting a number of open houses. They'll be open to the public. We'll have them in various places in the community. We'll have them at some varied times. And we're inviting people to come in and look at the maps and say, hey, yeah, we really like that one. No, that's a stinker. Why do you really like that one? And gather some of that final data to start bringing that down. I believe I told you before when we started this process, we envision this as probably a 3-phase process, so over 3 school years. So we want to at least try to tackle that first years, which will happen next fall, which will be a relatively small movement to kind of occupy the capacity that has been added at Russell Elementary. And we want to do that. We want to have that ready for you for the April board meeting. So you'll be able to do that. So we can get that into the enrollment process and all those other things that happen for school next year. The following 2 phases will be coming back to you in the summer with some of those final scenarios and making the decision on that. But we kind of have to all look at it in one chunk, or at least a good deal of it, because we also want to make sure that if any student is moved in phase 1, they're not moved in phase 2 or 3, and they're moved at any spot in that. There's just one move in this 3-year period. So that will be the things that we're shooting for, and those will be right now, those are the big ideas that they're starting to put to maps. I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Mr. Willoughby? I don't have a question.
I just want to hit on some things, some nuances that we sort of hit on in long-range facilities planning as well, Mr. Gooch. And so one of those things that I like to highlight for folks, because I want to make sure that there's no confusion, and you can just confirm it for me. If in the past boundary changes that we've done, if you have had a child that moved in that one, when we say that your child will not move in the phases that we're working on here, that does not mean that your family might not move this go around.
Correct.
The guarantee was the fact.
We're talking about specifically in this 3-year cycle that if you move in any one of those 3 phases, you wouldn't be moved in another one during this one. So it does not necessarily go back to any time that you've ever been involved in one of these realignments. Can I take 1 minute real quick and just explain, particularly for the public that's listening to, kind of why we're here? Because that's a big question that always gets answered. If we could turn back the clock about 30 years ago, Columbia wasn't doing a lot of boundary changes. And when they had growth, they had a really good plan at the time to handle that. They would bring a trailer, a mobile classroom, and they would put it in back. And that's how we dealt with growth and expansion and changing within the boundary areas. And that worked for a while. But then if you move up 15 years after that, now you're starting to have portable trailer classrooms that are starting to become tremendous maintenance issues. They're at their life cycle. They're ending that. Also, we had Columbine that happened, which changed all our looks at school safety, and we realized that. So the board decided, okay, we've got to get out of the trailer business, because Columbia had the distinction we had more trailers than anybody in the state of Missouri, probably rivaled most of the country. So the board decided that they were going to get out of that. We were going to build brick and mortar to replace that. At the same time, our student population was continuing to grow. So we have been in a building frenzy to keep up with the growth and to replace that lost capacity when we were eliminating trailers. And we've done a pretty good job at that. The good news is the projections for student growth are probably going to level out a little bit, maybe not be as aggressive as they were. So that might help us do a little bit of catch up here and be able in some future bond issues to talk about some of the projects that were talked about tonight. Also talk about some of the deferred maintenance that has been left on the table in some of our older buildings. We've got several buildings that are over 100 years old. So we've got a wide variety. So we've got to address that, and that will be all part of this plan and long-range planning. But I just want to share the reason why we're in this is we don't have that capacity to quickly change and pull in another trailer, and we can't do that. So we have to now rearrange some boundaries to fit our capacity.
I appreciate you sharing that because I think it is a huge nuance to like where we've been at and where we've been going and how we've gotten to where we're here. I think the only other question I have that I know we got discussed, and I hope that long range facilities planning, that being said, is going to help dispel, because that's why I emphasized it, but I want to emphasize it tonight too. This boundary change work that we are looking at for this next 3 phases includes both elementary and secondary schools.
While we're doing it, we're going to look at, obviously, elementary, because we have a lot of elementary capacity that is coming online in all 3 of those years. But we also know that we've got some pressure points in middle and high school. So we've got to take a look at those. And so we anticipate that probably a large part of any of that movement is going to happen probably at the fall of 25. Possibly the fall of 26, but that will be all part of that. We are going to be looking at secondary as well as elementary.
I was trying to find it, but I wasn't able to lay my hands on it. So I know we had a pause during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I also remember the last one of these that we did was either originally to be a 2 or 3 phase.
It was going to be a 3 phase.
And we didn't do the 3rd phase, which is what we're now doing.
What we're doing really for phase 1 in this.
So we did phase 1 and 2 last time. I think 2 was moving some kids from Parkade to Alpha. Was that it?
That was a large part
That was
of
one.
That move. Yes.
And what year was that? This is a quiz, Randy.
It was 2020. It
Jeopardy.
was 2020 because
Yeah.
they were all done right before the opening of John Warner.
Right.
The first one was 19, and then the year later with the fall opening of John Warner in the fall of 2020.
Okay, so where I'm going with this, and I realize, who knows how we're going to draw a map, but where I'm going with this is if your kid was in 1st grade and then moved, or was in kindergarten, then moved in 1st grade, in theory, if they're going to 5th grade next year, they could be affected. Or
in theory.
In
yes.
theory. Okay.
But we don't know where those maps are.
Exactly.
One of the things that we will definitely provide information on any of those options. We'll do some things like how many overall students are affected, because that's very important. Ms. Snodgrass asked some things of cooperative strategies last time about walking distances and concentric circles out. They now have incorporated that. They do that with all, so we'll be looking at what truly is a walking distance to a school. So there will be a lot of information with each of those scenarios, so you'll be able to kind of see what the impact is in a number of areas as well.
I know that the board has in the past also had a variety of policies related to grandfathering as well for kids that are.
That is true.
Yep.
What we've done is we've decided on the maps first, and then the board has decided how much of that they will allow. Let me just float the dark cloud out there while we're here, the reality, the elephant in the room, or whatever you want to categorize it. The previous 2 ones of these that we've done, the question was, okay, we're going to do this and we want to do these grandfathering things. How much additional transportation will we need? And it was always a calculation and say, well, we'll need 15 more buses. Well, we all have learned that we can have buses, but getting drivers to drive them is much more difficult. I do think in this This time that we're doing it, transportation is going to be a much different proposition than it has been in those past movements. So I just throw that out there as, I guess, to be a spoiler, but it is a reality that is going to be much different this time.
Thank you, Mr. Gooch.
Yep.
We appreciate you keeping the community and the board informed of the progress on this, and we will look forward to more discussions with everyone. I would imagine so. Yeah, Mr. Lyman and I were just on the radio talking about it on Sunday, so we'll talk about it all day, and we know people will have a lot that they want to say about it, and we will hear all of it. We are excited to turn the time over to Ms. Carla London to lead us through a Como Ed report.
Thank you. Good evening again, board. I'm really super excited to share with you this evening one of the programs that falls under the Equity Department. The Como Ed program is a program aimed at providing guidance, support, and encouragement to our local future educators. The presentation will share the rich history and the core values that shape the Como Ed program, provide insights into the current status and progress of our students, and then provide a brief projection of our program's future, highlighting the strategies and goals and continuing to foster excellence in developing our future educators. So at this point, I will turn it over to the supervisor of the Como Ed program, Ms. Nicole Adair, and she will lead us through the presentation.
Evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. Really briefly, Mrs. Moore and I, Whitney Moore is the assistant supervisor for the Como Ed program, and I will discuss Como Ed, the history of the program, how students get involved, what the referral process looks like, what supports our students receive, our partnerships that we have with our colleges and universities and within the community, and you should expect to hear from Dr. Parisi, who is the president of Missouri Valley and has been with Como Ed for a long time, and then a few of our students who are now teaching. But if I could start by saying, if Como Ed students who have patiently waited for this presentation, if they could all stand up. Just to talk a little bit about Como Ed. Como Ed actually was in place more than 20 years ago. It was actually called the Minority Internship Program, started with Miss Monica Naylor, the daughter of Beulah Ralph, also known as the Beyonce of education for me. She's just awesome and wonderful and lovely. Mrs. Moore is actually an alum of that program, as is Dr. Erica Neville, and many other students, now adults that are professionals working within our district. That program started the seeds for what we see as Como Ed today. What Mrs. Naylor laid down is an incredible foundation that she started internships with students who were students of color who were interested in becoming educators within our district. And she started an internship. She literally started it almost like a grassroots program. That program went away kind of unceremoniously and came back 8 years ago. It was started with discussion with a grassroots committee within our community that consisted of retired teachers, Worley Street Roundtable, many community members, university presidents that said, whatever happened with that program and how can we expand it? Mrs. Naylor was actively involved then and actually came out of retirement and kind of spearheaded, and she actually trained me when I came on board. What Como Ed consists of, really briefly, is students intern through the summer in high school. Our goal is to retain our students, sometimes as young as 10th grade. They are retained in the summer. They work with, we're very careful when we're picking our teachers. We want to pick teachers that are highly engaged and don't mind having them. They do this during summer school. After they are in summer school, we touch base with them, we retain them, we invite them back, and then as they are rising seniors, they apply for the Como Ed scholarships with our college university partners. Those partners consist of Stevens College is actually the start of last year with Stevens College. Our Malak is graduating from there. And then we have University of Missouri Columbia, Central Methodist University, Missouri Valley, and Columbia College. Just a little bit, just to discuss our partners and how vital they are. We have a partnership with MBS that helps us with our textbooks and has a complete textbook borrowing program, which really helps cut and eliminate costs for us. Our colleges and university really underwrite tuition because they are committed to our program and have been for over 8 years now. Our students do not, if they are selected, and ideally, if we are retaining them and doing what we need to do on our part, they are prepared when they interview. And once they are selected and they are matched with our college and university, they matriculate there. We support them all the way through college. They come back every summer and they work with us, and they're fully prepared, ideally, to be able to teach. As many of our students have been teaching, some of our students are teaching now. Our college and university partners are integral, I think, along with my colleagues, administrators, retired teachers, so many people that recognize co-ed teachers, and people within our community understand the importance of students who are within our community and recruiting students that are from this city, retaining students within this city who are familiar with this district, and those that are within this district, ideally who are staying here. So we've seen great success. If I could take a moment to have Dr. Parisi, who is with Missouri Valley, to come and discuss a little bit about our partnership and the history of it. Dr. Parisi.
Thank you very much for your time this evening. First, let me say, as a former school board member and alderman, and certainly in a different location, I commend you for your efforts and the strength to make decisions to make our community better each and every day. It's a big deal, and you don't hear that enough. It's appreciated. As a father of 2 daughters, one a Columbia Public Schools graduate, the other still in process and graduating soon, thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing, the proficiency level of what I would consider to be 2 amazing daughters. They were able to learn and grow here, and that's a big deal. And so it's very important to me to support those that are supporting our communities. As a husband to a wife who's an administrator in the district, I'm involved more than you could possibly imagine in what's going on in the district, and excited about that each and every day. The thought process, when asked to speak in reference to CoMoEd and the Grow Your Own Teachers initiative, that conversation first took place for me in 1998. It was the fall of 1998. And although the shortages weren't where they're at today and the situation the same, the mentality was there in terms of what's going to happen in the future and what's the predictive modeling that suggests we need more teachers, we need more proficient teachers, we need more teachers of color, et cetera, et cetera. And what were we going to do as the responsibility as higher education administrators to meet the needs of the workforce and the communities that we serve each and every day? It's a big deal. Right, so I've made it a personal mission throughout my journey to support all the programs throughout the state of Missouri as it relates to any program with growing your own teachers and the incentives that follow that. To see where it is today and how far it's come since that time is really something very special. You all had a lot to do with that as well in terms of the work that you're doing here. And so I'm appreciative of that. The folks that are at DESE that are trying to push this initiative, that are consultants now and doing the work that they're doing, those are the folks that I had those conversations with in 98. And so it warms my heart to think about where it's been, where it's at today. These students, several of them in which I recruited personally, to be a part of programs, to grow them for you. These students are out making it happen. And this is a big deal. This is a big initiative. And the state of Missouri, certainly Columbia Public Schools, is taking a leap forward from what others are behind, thinking about what do we need to do to meet those workforce demands and a teacher shortage of 44 million by 2030. What's that going to look like? As president of the college, education is one of our largest and top programs at the college. And so helping young folks understand, what does it mean to be a teacher? What are the benefits of being a teacher? What's the mission of being a teacher? And at the end of the day, what is your why as it relates to teaching our scholars of tomorrow? And how deep does that go for an individual person? Because while I've been around education for a long time, we've all struggled both at the secondary level and certainly in the higher education and what we're doing there with professor salaries. It's not any different. And so we try to help folks understand that, look, while we know we have greater needs, we know we need bigger salaries, we know we need more benefits, we know we need to raise the level of proficiency that's there. At the end of the day, why are we doing it? It's people, it's community, it's children, right? It's growth, it's sustainability for our future and for the community of our children's children. It's a big deal. And, I don't want to be up here too long. I just wanted to say, look, I'm a proud partner. I'm a marketing partner. I'm a Como Ed partner. I'm a partner to wherever degree we need to partner to move the needle for this community. And I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dr. Parisi. Always such a huge support. I wanted to take some time to talk a little bit about how our students are recruited for Como Ed. Ideally, when we first started Como Ed, like I said, the transition was that Mrs. Naylor trained me, and then I was kind of like out there on my own. So you learn very quickly to make relationships with those that are in the building. Talk to teachers. And I tell people all the time, teachers are the best recruiters of aspiring teachers. And so teachers would kind of almost organically say, I think this kid would be a great teacher. This student of mine told me they wanted to be a teacher. I started talking with those that were involved in AVID, other administrators, and as the program grew, quite honestly, many of my students will also recommend people that they see and think this person would be great for Como Ed. Como Ed has a brand, and I have very high expectations of my students. I'm sure they would be happy to tell you in a different time. Very high expectations, and they can meet them, and they have met them. And so we kind of move as a family, and because of those high expectations, what we know to be true is through a pandemic, through things being difficult, through things being challenging, we don't quit, is what we say. We just grab the other person and just go, we're moving forward, and we don't stop and we don't quit. And I think because of that is my hope that my students really possess incredible grit. And because they are from this community, I can proudly tell you that they are instigators of change. And when they are in buildings, ideally, when we're doing everything that we need to do, we are empowering them to speak up, to make a difference, to kind of be the squeaky wheel. But at the same time, we teach them how to have balance, how to forgive yourself, how to have grace with yourself, how to navigate difficult conversations. Who do I talk to in HR? What does this person do? How do I do this? Different things that I think lends to why Como Ed has had great success with retention. And so that's pretty much how our students are recruited. When we look at how come our retention has been so successful, I think a large part of it is some of the evidence-based interventions that that we've discussed. It's our partnerships that we have with our colleges and universities. And so when we're looking at our students, that really when they're in high school, I'm with them, growing them with them kind of step by step, every step of the way. And then when they go to college, it's my hope that I can identify some of those partners that will kind of keep it, you kind of start to mama bear them. I wish I could formalize this more, but it really is, that is exactly what it becomes. And you hope that, and we have seen that colleges and universities will kind of keep an eye out too. And honestly, we hold each other accountable as well. We really do. We understand that Como Ed is very unique, and it's an awesome opportunity, and we want to continue to maintain that for the future. So mentoring, we do a lot of mentoring, a lot of the middle of the night mentoring, because college students are like newborn babies, they don't sleep. We provide great support, and Whitney is going to expand on that as well. The internship program in which they are able to develop relationships with administrators, with Mrs. London, but also they're able to kind of integrate within the school systems to kind of learn the culture of different schools. I can also, communicate to you that by the time our students are doing their student teaching, they have been teaching, in essence, for a really long time. And they're very comfortable, and they feel, I think, welcomed and understand how to navigate, how to assert themselves, how to advocate for their students. And I think that's a large part of the mentoring that we provide for them. It is not mentoring that happens sometimes during that contracted time, but it is sometimes as easy as you can do this and you just got to put one foot in front of the other. And it's not, it is hard. I'm looking at you and telling you completely off the script on behalf of them. It's hard. It's hard. They're doing it, but it's really, really hard. And I think it is easier for them because we have each other, honestly. And so with that being said, Mrs. Moore is going to discuss the work that happens once our students graduate from college and start teaching.
Hi, everybody. I'm Whitney Moore. I am the Assistant Supervisor of Como Ed. This program, as Ms. Adair has shared, is very near and dear to my heart, as I was a student with Ms. Monica Naylor. So it was an honor to get to work with them and get to see them grow through college and the classroom. But more importantly, once they are actually teachers and have the big kid job and see them taking over a classroom is something that is incredible. I get to work with them through professional development, expectations, the little tricks and tips that we don't always get in our first year. We try to support them as struggles come up in the classroom management. How do I navigate difficult conversations? How do I work with classroom conflict? What are the things? Who are the people? And how do I navigate this world of being a teacher, whether that's in public or whether that's in the building? So what does that look like and how do I do it? I always talk to them about, we have a retreat and they get to work together in this retreat and receive professional development and really build a bond together. And I tell them all the time, even though I had the experience in the classroom, I didn't have the experience of having a community of people to work with. And that is, there's nothing that compares to that, to have someone else to lean on, to have someone to talk to you about their experience. We have our first Como Ed cohort who kind of tends to be our guinea pig on how things go. And she's a rock star. She is like our big sister of everyone who we can learn from, and we try to work through the problems with her so that we can then pass those down. So that being said, Tyus Monroe and Fernando Jimenez are going to come and introduce themselves to talk about their experience with Como Ed.
Good evening. I am Fernando Jimenez, and I'm a second-year educator here in this district. I'm a proud graduate of the district and of Battle High School. So I just wanted to express my deep gratitude for this program, Como Ed, and the opportunities that it has presented to me. For example, such as PDs, community involvements, starting from summer paid internship that just prepared me for being an educator. This program means a lot to me because thinking back to high school, I didn't think I would be where I am now. And I don't know, it's such a great program that I think about the other missed opportunities of educators who couldn't become educators, people who wanted to become educators, but they didn't have this program, right? So I really want to thank CPS for investing in a program like this to keep their teachers here. And I think other districts can definitely benefit from a program like this. I noticed that being here in this program, it has definitely given me a lot of grit, a lot of perseverance, taught me that. And that way I can bring that back into my classroom for sure. Because, I mean, it's not easy, right? It's not easy, but I feel like this program has definitely made it way easier. And that being said, it makes me want to stay in this program, makes me want to stay in this district because of this program. I feel the support, I feel the community, and that definitely retains me here, right? Because I am comfortable to come to supervisors like Nicole Adair and Whitney Moore. And I mean, I can keep going, but that's basically what I want to say.
I know I want to like cry or something. I'm Tyus Monroe. I'm the first graduate of the Como Ed program, the big sister as Miss Moore. Also, Miss Moore was my avid teacher. She's like my avid mom. But I just want to say, as the first, it just is like really like fulfilling, because as Miss Adair would say, like we really did grow together. I don't know why I'm crying. So I'm just gonna read what I wrote because I'm an English teacher, so I think I should just stick to what I wrote. So as an educator, this program has helped me maintain feeling empowered to do my job. I don't think I fully understood what that would mean until I officially started teaching. You always have to say officially when you're in Como Ed, because technically I've been teaching summer school since I was 16. I'm 25 now. When you're as confident... No, not teaching. Excuse me, interning. I've been interning since I was 16. When you're as confident as we are and your presence demands hard truth, you need your people. Como Ed ensures you have your people. We tell each other the truth, uplift each other, and have each other's backs. Also, AKA ride for each other, because we do. The heart of Como Ed is equity. As we know, like I feel like equity has been talked about a lot tonight. And I think as like the older sibling of the program, I'm also the older sibling in my household. You understand equity at a different level, especially when you're raised by a single parent, because you realize each sibling needs different things. And so it makes you understand that somebody might not be getting more, they just need different stuff, and that translates very well by the time we are getting into the classroom. Fernando talked about grit, and I think what makes Como Ed the most unique is that it helps you translate the grit that you learn in life, like collectively. We've all been through a lot of things, and I think it's helped us translate our ability to power through in life to our ability to power through in our journeys through higher education, and then in our journeys in the classroom. So I ended this with, we can't be outworked. We just can't. And I speak for myself and everybody. These are some of the most hardworking people I know. We can't be deterred from doing the important work of education because it is hard. And it just is your reminder that even if you're the only one, like for me, I'm the only teacher of color in my entire department, which is 2 departments at Rockbridge. And so it just having them to support me, and not just our supervisors, like everybody to support me, helps me remember that the work I'm doing is important and it's valuable work. And I don't think that those are things you'll get really outside of this program. So yeah.
Do you guys have questions?
Mr. Willoughby.
So, Miss Adair, Miss Moore, Miss London, Dr. Parisi, Miss Adair, no, sorry, I said Miss Adair, Miss Naylor. I know that she's not, I don't think she's in the room, but if she's listening, it's there. Thank y'all and to all of our other partners that do this, because it's a lot of labor of love that y'all put into this. And then the only other thing is, I know that we heard thank you from about having this program, but really more truly, thank y'all for taking a gamble on having this partnership and being committed to this school district. So thank you very much for doing that, because that means a lot and it's going to impact so many kids. So thank you. And that's.
Thank you both so much for being here and for bringing your students with you. I'll just say my takeaway is I could feel the spirit of teamwork coming from the back of the room. They were applauding for each other. They were cheering for you. And that's clear that is something that has translated. And that relationship that has been built in that group is what makes you the hardest workers, what makes you have such grit. And it's a wonderful thing to see, because we all need somebody that is going to be on our team all the time. So thank you for being the team leaders.
Thank you.
All right, we will consider our consent agenda. Is there anything that needs to be removed for separate consideration? Mr. Lyman?
What does that mean? I need to remove 9E, 12E, the Fostering Life-Changing Opportunities MOU.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item 9E, 12E?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the consent agenda minus item 9E, 12E, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have approved the consent agenda. We'll we'll consider item 9E, 12E separately, and that is the Fostering Life-Changing Opportunities Memorandum of Understanding. Is there a motion to approve that?
I move to approve item 9E, 12E, Fostering Life-Changing Opportunities Memorandum of Understanding.
Is there a second?
Second.
We'll do a roll call vote. If Mr. Lyman wants to explain his abstention, he is welcome to.
Oh, I've worked for Veterans United Home Loans, which is has a partnership with the Flourish Initiative. So just gonna pull that one
To avoid any
avoid
appearance
any-
of a
yep.
conflict of interest.
Okay. Mr. Lyman?
I'm gonna abstain.
Yes. Mr. Willoughby?
Yes.
Ms. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. Snodgrass?
Yes.
And Ms. Waters?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. We have one item of unfinished business. It is the consideration of the Student Transportation Services Bid Award and Agreement. This is the agreement with that we read over at the work session. Is with DS Bus Lines. Is there a motion? Is there a motion to approve the bid award and agreement with DS Bus Lines for a 3-year term?
I move that we approve the bid and award with DS Bus Lines for a 3-year term.
Second.
This will be a roll call vote. Is there any discussion prior to that? If Mr. Gooch wanted, I had asked Mr. Gooch to explain a little bit of the timeline that was involved in this process, and then we can take questions.
Address what you asked as far as timeline, just to kind of refresh our memories, because it's been going on for a while. So back around the beginning of school, maybe even late summer, we started preparing some of the things that we thought we would want to put into the next agreement. So then we did that. We prepared the RFP. It went out on October 13th. We opened bids on November 12th, And then we had panel interviews. They were originally scheduled the 21st of November, and then we ended up per some requests from vendors to have a little bit more time, and we thought that made sense with some of the questions they were asking. So the actual panel interviewed 3 different firms, and that was on December 7th. Last month, during our work session, you all did the first read of this. So that's kind of the timeline that got us here. Have been asked about why doing it now. This is an industry that we knew in the event that we would be, there was the possibility when we went out for bids that there would be a company other than STA that might get the bid. And if that was the case, new equipment would have to be acquired. Some of that equipment, as you can imagine, yes, is still being affected by supply chain issues. So we just felt that we needed to do that. Also, one thing that during that process, you as a board, you work to start taking major contracts to a 2-read process. So it's good that we started early because that allowed definitely for that time to do that. Just one thing, there's also been some questions about as far as low bid. Anytime that we do a contract like this, we're looking at, obviously we're looking at cost, but we're on the panel to kind of ascertain overall value to the district. And we went through that process. There was a lot of questions that we asked and got responses back after the interviews, and the committee as a whole decided to move with DS lines. So that's what has gotten us to here. Tonight we have Justin. Help me with your last name so I don't butcher it. Greigel. Yes. Sure. And so that brings us here. We think the work that we did, what we looked at, is a good move for our district. We looked at some areas that we have struggled with, and they seem to have some answers for that. Kind of innovative. One thing, about a week ago, we stood up here, Dr. Yearwood, and we got accolades from the Department of Labor for an apprentice program, a certified apprentice program. One of the things in their presentation, they talked about engaging students in apprentice programs that were interested in mechanics. So that's happened since then, so maybe we can formalize that and make that a little bit tighter and actually do that. So that was just one of the things that stood out to us was a innovative partner. So I'll try to answer any questions. And Justin, if you have any questions for him, he's said he's glad to answer anything that you have for him. So.
Ms. Farrell, go ahead, and then Ms. Snodgrass.
This is, I already forgot your name. Greigel?
I'm sorry, Justin Greigel. And I'm Randy. If you were, okay.
We've been here how long? Yeah. So, can you speak a little bit to a couple of things? You've got some technology things like GPS tracking. Is there where parents will be able to get a little bit? I think I see here, Where's My Kid? Custom mobile app.
Yes.
That you guys have. And I also understand that you have, if I remember correctly, you have kind of, I don't know what to call them, 2 managers. One person who kind of manages the fleet for our regular routes and another person who manages the fleets for our special education routes. Do I remember that correctly?
Yes, that's
okay.
correct.
But could you
Yeah, so
touch on
I
those?
can give you just if you'd like, I can give you a little bit of highlights here. Just ultimately, our proposal did, our approach included, so that included changing and adjusting some of the roles of the staff. So we wanted to have 2 assistant managers, and those are going to be elevated positions with salary and expectations that they would be there to help coach and mentor employees on the front line, both the ones that are communicating, the dispatchers and the routers that are communicating on an interface basis, like on the phone, as well as mentoring the drivers and monitors to give them more skills and tools to help them. So that's one of the things that's different in our proposal. You asked about technology, and so yes, we are going to have 8 cameras on the bus for closed caption recording, and then we also have a system that's separate from those. That's for driver behavior and coaching to help with those scenarios, and it's a forward-facing camera and an inward-facing camera. It's inertia-driven, and it tracks, if the bus moves fast, it helps provide messaging to the drivers, and it's really been a beneficial coaching tool for us to help manage drivers' actions behind the wheel. And so, go ahead, I'm sorry. Yeah, and so some of the other positions, we had 2 additional staff members added to the roles. One will be a recruiter dedicated to doing grassroots recruiting, and a safety trainer that's going to be dedicated to be able to be on the ground training when drivers are out on the routes and being available to help move candidates along. And so those are just a couple of the things that are out there. Some of the other things we have are training programs for the frontline staff and a development program for them. And so that's one of the things that all our team will go through, and it's something we pride ourselves on, is developing the individuals to provide more of that touchy-feely scenario where they can provide mentoring and coaching, especially as we're coming out of the pandemic and we're having to truly create new roles in some cases to bring people to the industry. So that's one of the things we want to do, and why we had a big focus about the local recruiter as well, to be able to do that here in town and communicate about the role and the job and how it's not just a job. We're educating scholars, bringing them to the community and trying to develop them, and we want to be part of that. And then as it relates to communication, so yes, we will have a parent app that'll interface with the routing systems, and also we're working on a connected experience to help bring, because there's multiple layers of technology, to try to bring those together. And some of the enhancements are like being able to communicate and track like student behavior reports going back and forth to buildings and video requests. So that helps track those on a system. And then some of the other tools are the parent app, and then also being able to push messages to the families instead of having to do that perhaps over the phone or take the calls. They might be able to push messages out. So that's some of the new enhancements with those pieces for delayed buses and such. We're excited about being here and collaborating with you to, enhance the transportation system.
I just wanted, and it's not actually a question for you, it's really more for Mr. Gooch. Oh, that got very loud. Just wanted to clarify, and it sort of got alluded to both by you with talking about the timeline and also earlier. So our current contract has an extension. It will be what is still in place for the 24-25 school year. This contract begins the beginning of the 25-26 school year. Okay, and then wanted to just clarify, and I apologize that I missed this earlier and didn't have a chance. When we talk about the financial impact and it lists that the proposal provides for estimated increase to the 24-25 operating budget of $3 million. That's based on our estimate for 24-25, then this is an additional increase, and then the addition for the starting year of this contract to that prior amount, and then the additional increases going forward, including all the excess technology and all the other things that are in the contract. Just to clarify, what numbers go with which school year.
Understand. Cool. And you did a good job lining all that up.
Yep, this contract starts August 1st of 25. Mr. Willoughby.
So throughout the years of being a board member for 5 years, right, when we are considering doing a contract with a new vendor, you can say a lot of great things, and I'm not saying that you're not. I'm not saying that you're overselling or anything like that. That comes in there. My big question there, though, comes into if you are not able to meet the things that we have talked about in this, what is that culture of response that y'all have as a company?
Ultimately, I mean, our goal is to collaborate and partner with you, right? So, I mean, you know, as you hear from teachers and being a part of the community, you know, school bus drivers and bus monitors are what your children, you know, face each day, first in the morning and last in the evening. And it's an important part of the community and a part of the job of getting children educated. And it's something that we don't take, you know, we don't take lightly. It's important. And so ultimately the key is just finding ways, and this is where we have partners and we work together to you know, to solve these things. It may be adjusting something that actually makes things better for everybody. You know, sometimes you find from talking to the drivers or as we get involved in a new system, we learn things that could be very simple wins that really help everyone. You know, if it's adjusting the way the buses come into a school 5 minutes earlier or something like that, all of a sudden it affects 2 schools down the line, and people don't realize that. Those are the things that are important, is working together, is having time and making sure our staff has time. That's why we've had additional team members to the system to be able to have that support and time to be able to address those things.
Seeing no other questions, we'll go ahead and vote. Thank you so much for answering the questions. This will be a roll call vote. Please turn your mics on.
Ms. Farrell?
Yes.
Mr. Willoughby?
Yes.
Mr. Lyman?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. Snodgrass?
Yes.
Ms. Waters?
Yes. All right, that bid has been awarded. Congratulations, DS Bus Lines. We look forward to working with you. Okay, our next item, is there a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the offering for sale of not to exceed $40 million principal amount of general obligation bonds?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. MacArthur, we'll let you discuss this one with our
Hi.
friends from Piper Sandler who have been patiently waiting all night.
Yeah. Yes, so as I have Matt Courtney here with me from Piper Sandler tonight, that's going to discuss, but just a little overview as he comes up to the podium. This is for what we're going to issue is a $40 million in general obligation bonds that was already authorized by our voters in the spring of April 2022. We had an $80 million bond authorization. $40 million of that was already issued in the fall of 2022, and we're going to issue the remaining $40 million now, and that's what we're coming with you tonight for the go-to-market resolution for that additional $40 million. And Matt's going to talk to you a little bit about the timeline and our pricing that we're going to see.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. And again, it's Matt Courtney with Piper Sandler, the district's financial advisor for bond issues. And like Heather said, in April 22, the voters passed an $80 million bond issuance, and just based on the projected spending patterns, we thought it best to split the issuances in two, $40 million and $40 million. The first $40 million was completed in, I believe, October of 2022. And what's before you tonight is what we call a go-to-market resolution for the final $40 million. Should the board approve the resolution tonight, us, district staff, and Gilmore and Bell, the bond counsel to the district, will begin preparing for the bond issuance, like preparing the bond offering document and getting that distributed, and applying for the bond rating for the bonds. We plan to be back in front of you at the March meeting with those final bond documents for passage, and then a couple days later there will be a competitive bond sale where we will receive bids on behalf of the district for the purchase of those bonds. After that bond sale is complete, there's still some paperwork and state auditor registration process that has to happen, with kind of the end goal of getting the money in hand to the district on or around March 28th. So that's kind of the timeline, and with that, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to discuss.
Ms. MacArthur, if you could just speak to a little bit of why we're requesting this additional $40 million now.
Of course. So we have our three main bond projects that we've talked about at long-range facilities and that you guys have approved contracts in our construction manager process over the last couple of years are our new Southwest Elementary School, the Career Center addition and renovation, and the Battle Elementary School addition. And as we talked a little bit about last week, we're getting ready to open bids for that new elementary school. And because the cost of those projects, we're going to need money to be able to pay for those projects. And so now is the time to go ahead and issue this additional $40 million so we have that money available. It's also, we wanted to get ahead. A lot of school districts, as you know, like in 2022, we went to the voters in April, so a lot of elections do happen in April. And so because of supply demand, we'd like to get ahead of the curve. And so we would like to get these bonds issued in March so that it's more competitive and we can possibly get some better rates if we can get the bond sale done before the April elections.
Thank you. And I mean, it kind of goes with that saying that 80 million is the new 40 million. So I think we've been very pleased with our construction manager at risk and the process that they have put in place to try to mitigate cost, but buildings cost money. So, all right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Sorry, I was not looking left and right. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this resolution. This will be a roll call vote. Mic's on, please.
Mr. Willoughby?
Yes.
Ms. Farrow?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Lyman?
Yes.
Ms. Snodgrass?
Yes.
Ms. Waters?
Yes. All right, it's approved. Go to market. All right. To market, to buy a fat bond. All right, the next item on our agenda is the consideration of the superintendent contract extension. Is there a motion?
I move that we extend the superintendent's extension. Second.
Is there any discussion? I will have a little bit to share. I do want to just reiterate that the board has been participating in an extremely thorough process throughout the entire year of evaluating Dr. Yearwood. We began in May, actually, of 2023, and we have met more than 12 times to go over his goals and discuss district progress with him. I can say with pretty good level of confidence based on consensus of the board that we believe Dr. Yearwood is focused on improving academics through expanded communication, teacher development, and data-informed instruction. He has navigated many difficulties and remained consistent in his drive to move the needle. Therefore, the board believes Dr. Yearwood has laid strong groundwork for district improvement and supports his continued leadership as the superintendent, pending successful vote, which we will now do.
All right. Mr. Lyman?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Willoughby?
Yes.
Ms. Farrow?
Yes.
Ms. Snodgrass?
Yes.
Ms. Waters?
Yes. Congratulations, Dr. Yearwood. Your contract has been unanimously extended. And we'll move on to the construction Okay, construction agreements, engagements, and change orders. Thank you. Wait till you need readers, Mr. Lyman.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion, any questions? All right, we'll go ahead and have a roll call vote.
Okay. Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Lyman?
Yes.
Ms. Farrow?
Yes.
Mr. Willoughby?
Yes.
Ms. Snodgrass?
Yes.
And Ms. Waters?
Yes. All right, that concludes the business portion of our meeting. Dr. Yearwood and I will be on KFRU tomorrow morning at 8:30. I am the board responder this month. So any emails that come to the full board, I will be responding, and I will not be telling any jokes at the time. Thank you for coming. Is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Willoughby.
Just on the topic of when you were talking about the bonds, and we were talking a little bit about our projects that we said that we would put in that bond, I just wanted to let people know that the website is live to keep updated on those 3 major projects of the renovations to the Career Center, the new Southwest Elementary, and the addition to Battle. You can click on those links that will show you where photos and where programming is at, as well as how the financials are being handled and where we were at in all those contingencies. That website is www.buildingcps.com.
Thank you. That's a good soundbite to be able to look back on. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's it. We're adjourned. Thank you.